Chapter 1709. The strongest point is also the weakest point, Lin Feng thought to himself. His previous conjecture was not far from the truth. Indeed, the world-destroying demon god spirit was in its nascent state. Previously, the spirit that occupied the great sage's body was the main body. Although a new spirit was born from the demonic Yuan in Fox Princess's body after being released, there was a huge difference between it and the previous spirit. When the spirit was split into two, it was not just a simple reduction in strength, but a reduction of more than 90%. For example, if a human's head was split in half, could he still live? However, the world-destroying demon god was different from ordinary martial artists. His spirit was based on demonic Yuan. In other words, as long as the demonic Yuan was strong enough, it could continuously absorb the aura of death into demonic power. The spirit could then recover bit by bit until it reached perfection. Just like how a cell could continuously differentiate and differentiate until it finally formed a perfect whole. It was rather terrifying. However, this was the super strong talent of the world-destroying demon god. He was very terrifying. Demonic Yuan could give birth to a spirit, and similarly, the spirit could give birth to demonic Yuan. They complemented each other. Previously, in the great sage's body, after occupying the body, the spirit of the world-destroying demon god converted part of its strength to give birth to demonic Yuan, forming a mini version of the world-destroying demon god. Unfortunately, the time was too short. Although the great sage's strength was constantly increasing, he still suffered in the hands of Lin Feng in the end. After all, the formation of demonic Yuan was not overnight, and the strength of the world-destroying demon god was closely related to the demonic Yuan. The stronger the demonic Yuan, the stronger the demonic power, the faster the absorption of the aura of death, and the more terrifying the body. This complementing each other had its strengths and weaknesses. Its weakness was its connection, just as its advantage was its connection. The sharper the blade, the easier it was to break. The spirit is closely related to the demonic Yuan and is connected. When the demonic Yuan is injured, the spirit will be injured. In addition, the spirit has not been born for long, and its strength is less than 10%, making it even weaker. Moreover, the territory of the Battle of Souls was in the great sage's body. With all these factors, the great sage was able to devour the spirit of the world-destroying demon god and successfully take back the body. Therefore, the world-destroying demon god is the same. He is strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. His body has existed since ancient times and is indeed very strong. However, the consumption of devil essence is huge. His spirit is born from devil essence and is even more connected to it. As long as I can shatter its demonic essence, its spirit will be annihilated, and I will be able to kill it. Lin Feng floated in midair as his thoughts ran through his mind. Looking at the graveyard in front of him that was already in ruins, his fighting spirit was clear. He already knew the weakness of the world-destroying demon god, but it was not an easy task to shatter his demonic aura. According to the great sage, the demonic aura of the apocalyptic demonic god did appear frequently. Firstly, when the apocalyptic demonic god absorbed the aura of death or unleashed the power of the demonic god, the demonic aura would appear on the forehead of the apocalyptic demonic god. The stronger the absorption, the more intense the demonic aura would be. Secondly, when the apocalyptic demonic god was attacked by various aura of death, the world annihilation demon god cultivated the Tao of the body. Therefore, his attacks mainly relied on his physical body. However, he also had long-distance attacks. This was something he knew very well because he had been attacked more than once. There are two main ways of attacking with the aura of death. The first is the light of the demon god. It is the attack that the world-destroying demon god launched when I first entered the graveyard. The second is the aurora of destruction. It is the evolved version of the light of the demon god. It is the most powerful attack that can be unleashed when the power of the demon god is used. It is what it relies on to break the restriction. Difficult. Even if he knew the world-destroying demon god's attack methods and weaknesses, it was still extremely difficult to grasp the weakness and destroy his demonic essence. The world-destroying demon god was not so foolish as to allow his weakness to be grasped and attacked. Furthermore, not to mention the aurora of destruction, just the light of the demon god was probably unstoppable. Swoosh! Swoosh! Two figures appeared in the deepest part of the graveyard. Lin Feng and the great sage looked at the huge hole that led to the bottom of the spinning top restriction. Their eyes flashed. They could see the world-destroying demon god if they went straight down. Just from here, they could clearly sense his terrifying aura. Of course, the world-destroying demon god could also sense him. Lin Feng knew this very well. However, the world-destroying demon god did not appear. Other than a threatening roar, there was nothing else. With his hatred for me, there is no reason for him not to come out after recovering his strength, Lin Feng said softly. So, there must be something at the bottom that is more attractive to him than you. The great sage clanged his giant rod, his battle intent radiating. Other than absorbing the aura of death to recover his demonic essence, I can't think of any other possibility. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He looked at the great sage curiously. Do you really have a way to lure him out? This restriction gets more and more difficult as we go down. There's a layer of invisible pressure blocking us. It was a dilemma. To enter the underground, one had to be at least a sage king. However, if a sage king entered and encountered an even stronger and more terrifying world-destroying demon god, only death would await them. Leave it to me. The great sage smiled strangely. Suddenly, 5 strands of hair appeared in his hand. They shone brightly. In an instant, 5 mini great sages holding giant golden rods appeared in front of him. Lin Feng's eyes widened in shock. These were not clones, nor were they treasures. The many great sages in front of him all had terrifying strength. They were at least at the Sage King level. Lin Feng looked at the great sage in shock. He did not know when the great sage had such a terrifying ability. This time, I lost my body and regained it. Not only did I not lose anything, I gained a lot. The great sage's eyes lit up. After I devoured the world-destroying demon god spirit, I gained part of his talents. One of them is this myriad clones ability. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat, and he instantly understood. The principle was very similar to the infinite separation of the world-destroying demon god spirit and the infinite birth of demonic essence. However, if your clones die, will it affect you? Lin Feng asked. Of course. In fact, they're the same as me. The great sage nodded. Therefore, other than the fact that their spirit is slightly weaker, the rest of their strength is not much weaker than mine. As he spoke, the 5 mini great sages jumped into the spinning top restriction. 5 clones. Their combined strength will only be stronger than mine. The great sage's eyes brightened. Looking at the shocked Lin Feng, the great sage smiled and said, "As long as I have enough time to absorb the power of heaven and earth, I can have as many clones as I want." He was more than 90% similar to the world-destroying demon god. Lin Feng was speechless. As the saying went, it was a blessing in disguise. It was the most appropriate way to describe the great sage. Losing his body not only allowed his strength to reach a higher level, but also allowed him to comprehend the way of the body. He also gained the heavenly unique treasure, the Earth Rod. Now, he had devoured the world-destroying demon god spirit and even learned the demon god's strongest talent ability. This was more than just terrifying. He might not even be able to defeat the great sage now. So, you still have clones elsewhere? Lin Feng moved and looked at the great sage. Yes, the great sage did not hide anything. He said straightforwardly, "Even if I am killed by the world-destroying demon god this time, my clones will carry all my memories. It will take at least a few years, or at most a few decades to fully recover. However, if there is no need, I do not wish to reach this stage." Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, this was almost equivalent to cultivating from scratch. The clones had to start from scratch. In order to fully recover the original body's strength, the main thing was the recovery of the spirit. It was not something that could be done overnight. Even so, the great sage's current ability was already terrifying enough. It could be said that he was completely immortal. Fortunately, he was now a friend and not an enemy. Suddenly, found it. The great sage's expression turned serious. His fiery golden eyes were filled with a stern light. It was obvious that he had encountered great trouble. Lin Feng subconsciously clenched his fists. Instantly, the world-destroying demon god's roar rang in his ears. It was filled with extreme anger. Pooh! The great sage spat out a mouthful of blood. His face turned ghastly pale. Let's go. Without saying anything else, Lin Feng and the great sage instantly retreated. Fast and accurate. Just 10 seconds after the two left, the spinning top restriction shook violently. A terrifying demon flapped its wings and appeared in rage. It was the world-destroying demon god. Its pitch-black eyes emitted raging flames. There seemed to be some kind of injury on its forehead. Its entire body emitted a black metallic light. It had already activated the power of a demon god. However, at this moment, it was completely different from when it was fighting Lin Feng. Its aura had become much stronger. It was no longer in a weakened state. Outside the cemetery, two figures were fleeing at high speed. There's still a large amount of death aura at the bottom of the restriction. The great sage's face was pale as he laughed. It was happily absorbing and did not expect me to suddenly arrive. Although it was absorbing the fiend essence fast enough, I still attacked it and injured it. Although his words were short, it was clear that the situation at that time must have been earth-shattering and critical. Lin Feng was well aware of the world-destroying demon god's strength. However, it was indeed impossible for him to kill 5 of the great sage's avatars in a short period of time. According to the great sage, the world-destroying demon god's fiend essence would be exposed when absorbing the death aura. The more intense the absorption, the more clearly it would be exposed. It would be difficult. Roar! Roar! It was as if the sky was about to shake. It was hysterical anger. Even from far away, one could feel the world-destroying demon god's rage. It was completely unleashed. It was enough to show his hatred for the great sage. That's right. The most precious fiend essence was almost destroyed. How could it not be angry? With such a deep-rooted hatred, it was no wonder the world-destroying demon god chased after it. Follow the original plan. The great sage's voice was deep. All right. Lin Feng looked at the great sage. Their eyes met. There was no need to be hesitant. Everything was understood without words. Let's go. With a roar, the two immediately flew in different directions like 2 shooting stars. Swoosh! Lin Feng was like a sharp arrow as he shuttled through the air. His expression was solemn. He could hear the world-destroying demon god's roars, but they were getting softer and softer. He circled around the world-destroying demon god and headed for the cemetery. His eyes were filled with determination. He knew very well how great the great sage's sacrifice was this time. Although he did not have eyes, he knew very well that the probability of him being killed by the world-destroying demon god was more than 99%. It was because of his sacrifice that this opportunity, which did not seem like an opportunity, was presented. Whoosh! Lin Feng unleashed his maximum speed. The cemetery in front of him was already clearly visible. I won't let your sacrifice be in vain. Lin Feng clenched his fists. Chapter 17:10. Whoosh! Lin Feng entered the graveyard without wasting any time. Every second was crucial. Every second was an opportunity. Every second was a chance for survival. Without stopping, he entered the deepest part of the graveyard. Lin Feng went straight for the spinning top restriction. It was pitch black below, but Lin Feng already knew its structure because the great sage had explored it once before. Apart from the bottom, there was no danger. Otherwise, the great sage would have reminded him that some things did not need to be said. Whoosh! Lin Feng's illusory spear flashed. The power of heaven and earth had already recovered to 100%, all for this moment. After leaving the graveyard for 3 hours, the world-destroying demon god was not the only one who recovered his strength. The rich power of heaven and earth gathered. Lin Feng was already prepared. Destroy. His goal could not be more clear. Destroying the bottom of the spinning top restriction was destroying the world-destroying demon god's root. Without the aura of death, his demonic essence could not grow. In fact, in order to maintain the most basic energy consumption in his body, the world-destroying demon god's demonic power would be depleted bit by bit, and the aura of death stored would decrease until depleted completely. At that time, it would be useless no matter how strong he was. It was here. After breaking through the pressure, Lin Feng could already feel the rich aura of death. The shield of truth quickly absorbed the aura of death without needing any orders from Lin Feng. The aura of death was getting thicker and thicker, accumulating at the bottom. There was indeed a lot of it. No wonder the world-destroying demon god had recovered from his weakened state. Unlucky. Lin Feng secretly praised the world-destroying demon god for his good luck. If he had known earlier, he would have entered this place and absorbed all the aura of death. Unfortunately, there are no ifs. It was not too late to mend the pen after the sheep were lost. The shield of truth sucked in the aura of death like a magnet, and Lin Feng's speed became faster and faster. The pressure came from the aura of death. Coupled with the fact that the restriction had not been destroyed, it created a powerful pressure. Indeed, the winged insect could not enter. However, to the great sage and Lin Feng, this resistance was nothing. He broke through it directly. I'm here. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he focused his gaze on the bottom of the restrictive spell. Just as the great sage had said, there was a thick aura of death emanating from the bottom. It was an extremely complicated structure of carvings. It was like a precise machine was operating, and the aura of death was constantly emitting from the tiny long holes. Energy conversion. Although he didn't know how it changed, he could see it clearly. Lin Feng did not stop at all. He did not even hesitate. Before his feet even touched the ground, he was already in the air, directly striking the bottom of the spinning top restriction. The power of heaven and earth exploded violently, producing an astonishing cohesion. The power of the 7-inch fist completely exploded along with the Panga tactics. One strike caused the spinning top restriction to shake violently. Boom! The light of the carvings was flashing. Lin Feng's heart raced along with it. Boom! Boom! Since he saw the results, Lin Feng naturally wouldn't stop. This was his original intention. The illusory spear condensed all of Lin Feng's attacks. They exploded like a vent, directly striking the carvings. Again and again, the carvings were wantonly destroying them. Soon, the light of the carvings dimmed and showed signs of cracking. The aura of death also slowly weakened until, bang, a violent explosion. The carvings at the bottom completely dimmed, and no more aura of death appeared. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. It was as if a huge rock had been lifted from his heart. After working so hard and fighting for so long, he finally succeeded. That kind of satisfaction was indescribable. Even if his doppelganger was killed at this moment, it was worth it. The defeat of the world-destroying demon god was irreversible. Roar! As if sensing something, Lin Feng raised his head to look at the sky. He could not see anything else, but a shocking pressure came crashing down. There was no doubt that it was the world-destroying demon god. His return was faster than he had imagined. The great sage seemed to have been killed by him. Now it was his turn. However, there was no panic on Lin Feng's face. There was only calmness and a faint smile. Because he had already won. Come on. Lin Feng was unafraid of death. In this narrow area, the surrounding space was firmly sealed. It was impossible for him to escape the attack of the world-destroying demon god. Even if he was in a weakened state, he was no match for him, let alone now that he had passed the weakened state. Against him, there was only a path to death. But even if he died, he would fight to the death and not be killed in a cowardly manner. Roar! The roar was mixed with boundless anger. The world-destroying demon god rushed over. His eyes were incomparably dark, emitting a strong power of the demon god. His killing intent was shocking. He was so angry that he had lost his mind. He naturally sensed the existence of Lin Feng. At the same time, he also sensed the disappearance of the aura of death. There was the only place where he could eat food. But right now, there was no longer any smell of food. No matter how stupid he was, he understood what had happened. Roar. The roar that had lost its mind. The black metal light suddenly shone brightly. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat, but he was really a little stunned. This feeling could not be more familiar. It was the power that the world-destroying demon god used to attack him for the first time. Long-range attack. The attack of the aura of death. It was extremely powerful, but it had a side that no one knew. Ha! Lin Feng laughed, and his eyes lit up completely. He circulated the Pangu technique faster than ever. Facing the pressure of death, Lin Feng erupted with unprecedented strength and staked everything on one throw. There was no way out now, and there was no possibility of survival. But just like this was the real desperate situation. There was a great mystery between life and death. 7-inch fist. Lin Feng's eyes were cold and bright. His spirit was unprecedentedly focused. 2 white spots of light lit up on his left and right hands. At this moment, Lin Feng was very sure that he could perform the second move of the 7-inch fist, even if he had never succeeded before or even tried it. But he was extremely sure. The illusory spear had disappeared. What was left was Lin Feng's body and a pair of fists that condensed terrifying power. In front of him, an extremely intense beam of light attacked with a destructive attack power. Lin Feng was very clear that it was one of the unique skills of the world-destroying demon god, the light of the demon god. Its power was strong because the demonic aura was integrated into it, forming the strongest attack power of the spiraling aura of death attack. It was very strong. It was insufferably strong. In fact, Lin Feng did not have any confidence that he could survive this attack. But even if I die, I will peel off a layer of your skin. Lin Feng's eyes shone with an aura, and there was a trace of ruthlessness in his bones. The 2 white spots on his left and right hands exploded in an instant, blooming with a bright light. The power of the 7-inch fist completely erupted at this moment. Without hesitation, it met the surging aura of death, blasting everything and going straight for the demonic aura. In an instant, the entire spinning top restriction let out a deafening sound of thunder. Boom! Chapter 17:11. There was a huge explosion. The terrifying power even left some marks on the outer walls of the spinning top restriction, which had extremely strong defensive power. Ouch! The world-destroying demon god let out a painful cry. His twisted and hideous face seemed to be seriously injured. Black blood flowed out from all parts of his body, especially his forehead, which was glowing weakly. Ha! The devil chi returned, but the world-destroying demon god's eyes were a little listless, and his face was extremely pale. His strength had not recovered, and he had just passed the period of weakness. Now his devil chi was slightly injured, and this time he was attacked directly. Although he was not seriously injured, his injuries were not light. The world-destroying demon god had lost his mind, just like when he was in the restriction. To the world-destroying demon god, what controlled his body now was more instinct. So his attack was also instinctive. But unexpectedly, he encountered such a strong opponent. Swoosh! Although the world-destroying demon god was injured, he was obviously much stronger than when he was in the period of weakness. He quickly recovered part of his strength. The world-destroying demon god glanced at the restriction with doubt, but he could not find the trace of the human. Confusion flashed in his eyes, and he suddenly shook his head thoughtfully. Roar! As if he suddenly thought of something, the world-destroying demon god was furious again. Even if that human had been blasted into pieces by him, his food had also been destroyed by that human. Lin Feng, is he dead? Ha ha ha! Lying on the ground, Lin Feng wanted to laugh out loud, but he couldn't make a sound. His body seemed to have fallen apart, and he could not move. The power of heaven and earth was greatly consumed, but there was still a part of it left. At this moment, it was slowly repairing his severely injured body. This was a peaceful space that seemed to be isolated from the world, but also seemed to be close at hand. There was no one else in the entire space, only Lin Feng. Two Lin Feng. One was the original body, and the other was the doppelganger. Good comes after bad. Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and his heart was filled with joy. Although the difficulties came one after another, the original body still broke through. Apart from the most troublesome maze, the third and fourth checkpoints of the snake-shaped pyramid were actually simpler. They were purely tests of strength and did not hinder the original body for too long. The main body came out of seclusion slightly earlier than the clone. Therefore, he was able to summon his clone back in time at the critical moment. He would only be injured but not killed. As the saying goes, one who survives a great disaster is bound to have good fortune in the future. This time, not only did his avatar achieve a breakthrough in the realm of the 7-inch punch, it also damaged the demonic vitality of the world devastator demonic god. Coupled with the complete destruction of the spinning top restriction, it could be said that the world devastator demonic god was in a dire situation. Only, your sacrifice was not in vain. After the joy, Lin Feng still felt a little guilty. In order to attract the world-destroying demonic god and hold him back, the great sage had paid a huge price. It was impossible for his main body to escape from the claws of the world-destroying demonic god. Fortunately, he now had the talent of the world-destroying demonic god. He still had an avatar that could slowly absorb the power of heaven and earth to recover. He believed that he would soon be revived with full health. However, he did owe him a huge favor. If there is a chance, I will do my best to help you, Lin Feng said to himself. Receiving someone's favor would be remembered for 1,000 years. Naturally, he would never forget it. At this moment, his main body had already looked around and observed carefully. This was the region that the teleportation gate at the top of the serpent-shaped pyramid led to. It seemed to be in the Do Ling world, but it also seemed to be an independent spatial region. Why did he spend so much effort to break through the serpent-shaped pyramid and come here? The secret of the demon clan. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. This was where the restriction on the 7th level of the Demon Emperor Island was located. No demon clan expert had ever entered this place before. What would the 3,000 demonic gods leave behind here? He was very curious. The deity plane, Shun, Qinlian Huang, Fong Ning, and the rest of the human experts gathered together. The ancient experts led by Gu Sheng were all seated in the seats of honor. The atmosphere was extremely tense and suffocating. No one spoke. It was as if they were waiting for something, but could not wait for it. Still can't contact him? Gu Sheng frowned slightly. Shun shook his head. We can't wait for Emperor Lin. The war with the sorcerer tribe now can only depend on ourselves. His words caused a huge commotion in an instant. It was especially so for the ancient gods of the ancient race. Their faces turned ugly. They had all experienced the great battle with the Demon Clan and Pinnacle. They knew how terrifying Lin Feng's abilities were. He was definitely a transcendent being who could turn the tide of the battle by himself. But Lin Feng was not here. How much of the strength of the human race and the alliance could they bring out? Gu Sheng exhaled deeply. He was the new ancient emperor after all. Although he felt helpless, he was forced by Lin Feng to do something beyond his ability. However, he still needed to stand up and preside over the situation. He said in a low voice, "Then we will follow the original plan. Before we know the details of the sorcerer tribe, there is no need to fight them head-on. We will delay them for as long as we can." Shun nodded. Attacking is not our strength. Moreover, the sorcerer tribe is the one in a hurry, not us. Light flashed in Gu Sheng's eyes. The sorcerer tribe is not comparable to the demon clan. I heard that sorcerer Emperor Shijuin placed the human lamb Tok Ti in an important position. The latter has always been known for his viciousness. Back then, he led the demon clan to defeat the sorcerer tribe and invade the land. He is famous and should not be underestimated. Shun's expression was serious, and he smiled cheerfully. We also have Emperor Gu and Emperor Lien. In terms of this, Shun pointed at his head and smiled. We are not inferior to the sorcerer tribe. Gu Sheng smiled bitterly. Although that is the case, the sorcerer tribe has been conserving their strength for a long time. In addition, we do not know the details of the sorcerer tribe. If they do not have full confidence, why would they send out their troops so easily? Light flashed in Gu Sheng's eyes, and he said in a low voice, in my humble opinion, the sorcerer tribe's battle strength is not limited to what we see on the surface. That they must have a backup plan. Gu Sheng landed on the ground with a solemn expression. In an instant, it caused a commotion among the crowd. There were all kinds of expressions. What is there to be afraid of? They have a backup plan, but so do we. One macho shouted. His voice was loud, and he looked heroic. As long as we delay them and wait for Lin Feng to arrive, the sorcerer tribe? What's there to be afraid of? Let's kill them. His words were vulgar, but they were deeply rooted in people's hearts. All the human experts agreed in unison. In an instant, they were full of confidence. Lin Feng was an invincible god of war in the hearts of the human experts. He was the absolute symbol of spirit. They were 100% sure that as long as Lin Feng was there, the human race would not be defeated. The monster tribe returned in defeat. It was the sorcerer tribe's turn now. Well said. Kill them. That's right. They think we humans are easy to bully. Come, brothers. Let's win a beautiful battle for Emperor Lin. The sorcerer tribe is nothing. The quiet divine hall was suddenly in an uproar. The fighting spirit of the human powerhouses was high, and this attracted the attention of the ancient gods of the ancient race. Looking at the surging aura and fearless aura, the ancient gods looked at each other and seemed to be infected. Inexplicably, a sense of confidence rose in their hearts. They could feel the strength and confidence of their allies. Indeed, the situation was worse that day. However, the monster tribe was different. They were defeated. How could the current situation be worse than that? The sorcerer tribe was nothing. The war had broken out. At this moment, Lin Feng was immersed in reading. Indeed, he was reading. On the 7th level of Demon Emperor Island, there was a large amount of monster tribe records. From the ancient war to the information of the 3,000 demon gods to the great battle with Pangu, all kinds of cultivation information were available. There were no books, only stone tablets with all kinds of essence carved on them. Lin Feng looked at them without blinking. He was shocked. The world was huge. Here, there was the strongest and most essence cultivation information of the 3,000 demon gods. Back then, the 3,000 demon gods were severely injured and knew that they did not have much time left. They gathered their last efforts to create the World Annihilation Demon God and the cemetery. Who would have thought that the World Annihilation Demon God would mutate in the end? Then, they sealed the World Annihilation Demon God and built Demon Emperor Island. Among them, the monster tribe's greatest secret was hidden in Demon Emperor Island. Heart, physical strength, soul power. None of the three can be missing. After refining this god Annihilating Yang altar and combining it with the god Annihilating Lock-in altar, we can trap the World Annihilating Demon God, destroy his intelligence, and take over his body. With this combat power, the monster tribe will definitely be able to kill the descendants of Pangu, unify the fighting spirit world, and take revenge for us. Lin Feng stood in the center of the restriction. There was the largest stone tablet there. The words on it were flamboyant, announcing the terrifying strength of the person who left the words. This was a different stone tablet. The other stone tablets were inscribed with the cultivation essence of the 3,000 demon gods. Only this one, it was specially left for the descendants of the monster tribe. The purpose was for the existence of the World Annihilation Demon God. I see. Lin Feng looked at it carefully 3 times. He nodded in realization. Indeed, as he had predicted, the 3,000 demon gods must have left a way for the descendants of the monster tribe to stop the World Annihilation Demon God, or even completely destroy him. It was not difficult to guess, but the truth was enough to shock him. The ambition of the 3,000 demon gods was huge. They unintentionally created a terrifying existence like the World Annihilating Demon God. In fact, with their remaining strength, they could have destroyed him. However, they were not willing to do so. Therefore, the 3,000 demon gods used the god annihilating lock-in altar to trap the world annihilating demon god. They also instructed the monster sovereigns to feed the world annihilating demon god. They waited until the world annihilating demon god grew into a huge tree from an essence seed. Then they kept him in the god annihilating young altar and completely refined him. He became a fighter for the monster tribe to kill the descendants of Pangu. From the beginning to the end, it was a scheme meticulously planned by the 3,000 demon gods. The plan was flawless. However, they neglected the most important point, the demon heart. The human heart was different, and so was the demon heart. First, it was the great sage's curiosity. Then, it was Fox Princess's wild ambition. She completely ignored the advice of the monster sovereigns. Now, the mistake was made. The world-annihilating demon god even destroyed the restriction that trapped him, which was the god-annihilating lock-in altar written on the stone tablet. Just the god-annihilating young altar alone, was it still useful? Lin Feng could not help but sigh. Chapter 17:12. Lin Feng's gaze landed behind the stone tablet. There was a circular treasure that was flashing with brilliant light. At this moment, it looked extremely similar to the restriction that had trapped the world-destroying demon god previously. However, the size was different. This treasure would definitely be able to become bigger when it unleashed its true power. The plan is really perfect, Lin Feng thought to himself. Indeed, the 3,000 demon gods could not be blamed, because their plan could be said to be flawless. First, they used the god-slaying lock-in altar to trap the world-destroying demon god and lock its spirit. The world-destroying demon god was only left with an empty shell. They would slowly feed it from the seed, growing it bit by bit until it became a complete body. Its body would still only have demonic chi and no spirit. Then, the descendants of the demons would hold the god-slaying young altar and merge their spirits into it, entering the cemetery and merging with the god-slaying lock-in altar. They would directly refine the world-destroying demon god's body for their own use. Their strength would be extremely terrifying. But this was built on a foundation that was the god-slaying lock-in altar, which could lock the world-destroying demon god's spirit. Now that the god-slaying lock-in altar was destroyed, the world-destroying demon god's spirit was like a ferocious tiger that came down the mountain, unhindered. What a joke. That was purely courting death. Moreover, without the god-slaying lock-in altar, it would be difficult to unleash the full power of the god-slaying young altar. Heart power refers to willpower, which is also the first stage of the serpentine pyramid. This is the key to refining the god-slaying young altar. Physical strength is pure physical strength, the strength of the demons. This is the third stage. Lin Feng nodded and thought to himself. The existence of the first stage was to pave the way for refining the god-slaying young altar. Only the demon experts who passed the first stage could truly refine the god-slaying young altar. The third stage was screening. After all, the world-destroying demon god's body was extremely precious, and it cultivated a unique body Tao. If a demon expert like Fox Concubine obtained the world-destroying demon god's body, they would not be able to unleash the power of the world-destroying demon god. The 3,000 demon gods were naturally unwilling to waste such a treasure. If that was the case, they would rather destroy it directly. The fourth stage was soul power. Without enough soul power, even if they obtained the world-destroying demon god's body, they would not be able to fully control it. Furthermore, the remnant spirit in the world-destroying demon god's body might even rise from the ashes. At that time, it would be even worse. As for the second stage, it seemed like the path of an array formation, but in fact, it was the method to refine the god-destroying young altar. After all, it was too difficult for the demon race to refine treasures. It was only possible by taking an unconventional path. Every barrier of the snake-shaped pyramid was carefully set up by the 3,000 demonic gods. They were not just decorations. However, all of this seemed to have been for naught. Young altar of annihilation. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he looked at the treasure right in front of him. Just by looking at the material of this treasure, one could tell that it was not inferior to the 3 heavenly treasures. It was probably at the same level as the Pangu armor on his clone. It seemed to be a good thing to be able to refine it. Although he didn't have the other half of the god-slaying locking altar, if he could use this treasure, his strength would definitely increase by a level. Give a try. Anyway, the World Annihilation Demon gods had already lost their source of death aura and were already at the end of their road. Although there might still be some variables, such as whether the World Annihilation Demon gods who still had death aura would go berserk and attack indiscriminately. These were all out of his control. Since that was the case, he might as well refine the god-destroying sun-gathering altar first before waiting for the world-exterminating demon god's next move. If the enemy doesn't move, I won't move either. The array of the second barrier. Lin Feng picked up the god-destroying sun-gathering altar gently. The brilliant light was as beautiful as the halo of an angel. It was hard to imagine what kind of ability it had and how much terrifying power was hidden in it. But obviously, there was no reaction when he held it in his hand. Even if there was a reaction, with his current strength, it was impossible for him to refine it. However, the method left behind by the 3,000 demonic gods on the stone tablet had a magical power. Wow! Lin Feng closed his eyes. Faint star source power surged out from his hands and entered the god-destroying sun-gathering altar like gossamer. It wasn't rejected, but it wasn't accepted either. The star source power moved slowly. The route of the array of the second barrier appeared clearly in Lin Feng's mind. It was extremely mysterious, and the star source power was moving in the same way. It was a complete simulation. To Lin Feng, the #1 weapon refiner in the Douling world, the control of the star source power was completely at his will, without any deviation. Very soon, the star source power had moved 1/3 of the way. The god-destroying sun-gathering altar didn't seem big, but there was a universe inside. It was like a world that contained Mount Meru in a mustard seed. Focus your mind. There's a strange power. Lin Feng's movements were light, and he was rather surprised. The movement of the star source power seemed to have triggered some kind of hidden energy in the god-destroying sun-gathering altar. At this moment, in his mind, the array of the second barrier and the god-destroying sun-gathering altar seemed to overlap. As the star source power moved, the strange energy also continued to strengthen and slowly superimposed. 2/3. Lin Feng's forehead was covered in sweat. He felt a strong pressure. The strength of the energy was extremely oppressive to his willpower. It was like a majestic mountain. If he was careless, he would be crushed into pieces. However, he withstood this pressure. The gathering of energy became stronger and stronger, including the god-destroying sun-gathering altar. He seemed to have left a deep footprint in every part of the space. Bit by bit, it penetrated the foundation 80%, 90%, 95%. Lin Feng's face became more and more solemn. The release of the star source power continued to increase. The pressure was like the waves of the sea, each wave stronger than the previous one. Clenching his teeth, Lin Feng didn't relax at all. The path of the array of the second barrier in his mind slowly came to the end. At this moment, the star source power in the god-destroying sun-gathering altar seemed to have opened a magical door. Wah! A bright light burst out. Lin Feng felt that his mind seemed to have entered a magical space. It was a vast and boundless area. The surroundings flashed with a sparkling luster. The faint star source power densely covered the entire space, forming a strange pattern. It was like a big seal that suppressed the entire space. What a magical power! Lin Feng sighed. This power was clearly the power of engraving that exceeded his own strength. It was the power of engraving at the starry sky level. Instead of saying that it was refining the god-destroying sun-gathering altar, It was better to say that it was suppressing the god-destroying sun-gathering altar. With the magical power of engraving and the existence of the powerful Tao, it was suppressing and controlling the god-destroying sun-gathering altar. And this was more in line with the characteristics of the demon race, just like what they wanted to do to the world-destroying demon god. Control. Swish. Countless information appeared in his mind, and he glanced through it. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. He carefully savored every word and sentence of the god-destroying sun-gathering altar. He deeply understood its structure, usage, and even various information. He benefited a lot. Although he didn't really refine the god-destroying sun-gathering altar and couldn't exert 100% of its power, but it didn't matter. For such a starry sky-level treasure, even if only 10% of its power could be exerted, it was already extremely terrifying. Not to mention that he could exert more than 10% of its power. Oh, so the god-destroying sun-gathering altar can lock the body. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He was quite surprised. But thinking about it carefully, it wasn't surprising. The god-destroying sun-gathering altar could lock the soul, so it was reasonable that the god-destroying sun-gathering altar could lock the body. If according to the plan of the 3,000 demon gods, the descendants of the demon race wanted to occupy the body of the world-destroying demon god, wouldn't he resist? One had to know that even if his soul was locked, the world-destroying demon god still had his instincts. Therefore, the god-destroying sun-gathering altar became extremely important. Locking the soul and body of the world-destroying demon god was like a chain firmly trapping him. He couldn't move, and the last step could be carried out. Unfortunately, it was just empty talk now. Even if I use the god-destroying sun-gathering altar to lock the body of the world-destroying demon god, I can't break his defense. Not to mention his normal state. Even his weak state is abnormally terrifying. The only possibility is his demonic aura. However, his demonic aura is hidden deep in his body. Except when he launches a fatal attack, the world-destroying demon god will protect it tightly for the rest of the time. Moreover, I injured his demonic aura previously. Now, it's even more impossible for him to expose his demonic aura at will. Lin Feng murmured softly. In fact, even if the world-destroying demon god used the light of demon god, his avatar wouldn't be able to destroy his demonic aura with all his strength. The second level of the 7-inch punch only injured his demonic aura, and it wasn't even a serious injury. After all, the power of the light of demon god was equally great. When he attacked the demonic aura, he also had to bear the terrifying attack power of the world-destroying demon god. If he hadn't recalled his main body in time that day, his avatar would have died. Moreover, using the god-destroying sun-gathering altar consumed a lot of energy. He was afraid that he would only be able to restrict the world-destroying demon god for an instant. In an instant, he could kill him? That was impossible. Let's talk about it later. Lin Feng nodded, and his eyebrows relaxed. After all, the current situation wasn't that bad. The world-destroying demon god was already at the end of his road. There was no need for him to spend so much effort to kill him. As time passed slowly, his death was inevitable. So, why should he take such a big risk to fight him? It was completely unnecessary. But I have nothing to do anyway. Lin Feng smiled, and then sat down cross-legged. The god-destroying sun-gathering altar lit up. It might be useless against the world-destroying demon god, but if a terrifying ability like the god-destroying sun-gathering altar was cultivated successfully, it would increase the strength of his main body tremendously. Thinking about it, if he could control the enemy and then use his main body's strongest flame attack power, condensing it at one point, how terrifying would that be? Even if his avatar was strong, he would be seriously injured, if not dead. Seems like it's not that difficult, Lin Feng murmured. As the most basic ability of the god-destroying sun-gathering altar, the difficulty of cultivating it didn't seem that high. Very soon, Lin Feng completely entered the state of cultivation. His avatar absorbed the power of heaven and earth and slowly recovered. Wing was still spreading out his spies, monitoring the world-destroying demon god and waiting for his next move. What would the world-destroying demon god, who had lost the spinning top restriction, do next? Where'd he go from here? Chapter 17:13. While his main body was cultivating, his clone was recovering. On Demon Emperor Island, Lin Feng did not step out of his house. However, Wing's existence allowed him to spread heavenly eyes all over the demon territory, allowing him to monitor the world-destroying demon god's every move. After the spinning top restriction was destroyed, the world-destroying demon god did not appear for 3 days and 3 nights. He stayed at the bottom of the spinning top restriction, as though waiting for a miracle to happen. However, Lin Feng knew what he was doing. The world-destroying demon god was not waiting for a miracle to happen, nor was he longing for the spinning top restriction. Instead, he was recuperating. His demonic qi had suffered serious injuries when he lost his mind and attacked Sui Xiong. It was as though his soul was injured. Naturally, he needed to recuperate. However, demonic qi required a large amount of death aura. The remaining death aura in the spinning top restriction might not be enough for the world-destroying demon god to recover. Whoosh! Sui Xiong's eyes flashed. It was the clone that was recovering the heaven and earth aura. He opened his eyes and looked into the distance. The world-destroying demon god had finally appeared. He came out slowly from the spinning top restriction. He seemed to be listless and lost. His expression was even worse than before. He had just recovered from his weakened state, but his demonic qi was severely injured. The worst thing was his roots were cut off. Without the death aura, he seemed to have sensed the end of his road and reached the end of his life. Roar! The roar was weak. The world-destroying demon god's eyes were cold, and his movements were stiff. He flapped his wings and absorbed the remaining death aura in the cemetery. However, the remaining death aura in the cemetery was extremely weak. It was not enough to fill the gaps between the world-destroying demon god's teeth. Apart from that, the world-destroying demon god did not know what to do. He seemed to have lost his direction. Let's continue like this. Lin Feng thought to himself. He could not wait for the world-destroying demon god to continue in such a dispirited state. As his demonic qi was connected to his spirit, there were pros and cons. His body's functions needed the death aura to maintain. Although the consumption was small, it could not be sustained for long. Slowly, he would be able to exhaust him to death. It would be best if he could kill without spilling blood. When my clone recovers, or my main body succeeds in cultivating, I will choose one to return to the human territory. As long as one of them cooperates with Wing to monitor his movements, it will be enough. Lin Feng shivered inwardly. Although he was on Demon Emperor Island, his heart had never let go of the human territory. Because he knew very well that when Wing was summoned back, the sorcerer tribe had already started the war. However, he was not really too worried. Perhaps there would be some losses. However, the current human race was no longer the ignorant people of the past. In addition, there was the Ancient Race Alliance and Gusheng, who had broken out of the cocoon and was even stronger. Even without him, the human race and the ancient race might not necessarily lose to the sorcerer tribe. However, if the sorcerer tribe dares to attack so recklessly, they must be prepared. It's very likely that he's hiding some killer move. That's why he's so confident. I can't stay here for too long. Lin Feng calmly analyzed. The sorcerer race was not as stubborn as the monster race. In front of them was Sorcerer Emperor Jiang, and behind them was Shi Jiuyin. The shamans must know the combat power of humans. Even if they judged it according to the standard when they fought with the demon clan, the fact that the shamans dared to attack so recklessly proved that they were at least 50% confident. He must not be underestimated. Indeed, he could not be underestimated at all. Lin Feng's judgment was not wrong. The sorcerer race's attack was extremely fast as they advanced like flowing water. However, they went around the human territory that was closest to the sorcerer territory, which was the most heavily guarded. Instead, They attacked the ancient race's territory, avoiding their main force and attacking their weak points. They did not care about their old friendship with the ancient race. Humans and ancient race guarding, the sorcerer race did not attack this place. Obviously, the sorcerer race knew the ancient race's weakness very well. They also knew what a real war was. They would not make the same mistake as the demon clan. They knew that there was a tiger in the mountain, but chose to go around it. They did not want to fight the tiger head-on, even if their strength was not weaker than the tiger. For a moment, the ancient race was in a state of panic. The ancient race, who had just taken back the ancient region from the demon clan and was thriving, suffered another severe blow. Although many ancient race clansmen had retreated in batches, the sorcerer race's attack was fast and fierce. They still caused a new ancient region to suffer heavy losses. Thunderous fury. How could the ancient gods sit still? The ancient race valued their dignity and faced the most. Even Buddha would be angry if the sorcerer race trampled on them. If it were not for Gu Sheng suppressing the sorcerer race, the ancient race would have fought the sorcerer race to the death instead of retreating again and again. Sorcerer territory. Delightful. Kuei Tu raised his cup and drank to his heart's content, laughing heartily. Well done, third brother. Shi Jiuyin revealed a sinister smile. He was in a good mood, and a cold light flickered in his eyes as he said, "To think that I put down my pride to put on a show that day. Who would have thought that these lowly ancient race bastards would not listen to reason or force? They turned around and colluded with the humans to scheme against my sorcerer race." Lam Tok Ti smiled confidently and said, "It's within my expectations. After all, the ancient race's leaders are no longer those stubborn old fellows." Gu Sheng. Kuei Tu's eyes gleamed coldly, revealing a faint killing intent. Lam Tok Ti looked over and smiled faintly. Lin Feng is not here, so he is the strongest person in the ancient race's camp. I've heard that his strength is comparable to Di Jiang. Big brother, are you confident? Ha! Kuei Tu laughed heartily. Qilin's arms moved, and lightning crackled on its horns. Killing him is as easy as flipping my hand. After obtaining this body, even though I've only recovered 90% of my strength, dealing with this yellow hair brat is as easy as flipping my hand. Lam Tok Ti nodded. If we can kill him and divide the ancient race from the inside, cracks will appear in the so-called alliance. Third brother, I have a question. Shi Jiuyin put down his wine cup and asked solemnly. Lam Tok Ti's gaze fell on Shi Jiuyin, and a light flickered in his eyes as he asked, "Second brother, are you trying to say, although we seem to be doing well, we haven't caused any substantial harm to the ancient race and ancient race's forces? On the contrary, we're scattering our forces, making it easier for the ancient race and ancient race's experts to ambush us?" Shi Jiuyin harumphed. That's right. If we're ambushed, we'll be at a disadvantage. Lam Tok Ti chuckled, and his expression darkened. Of course they'll ambush us. I believe they're probably discussing how to deal with us right now. Lam Tok Ti's tone suddenly changed. But they won't do small-scale ambushes because it's too risky for them. Ambushes and counter-ambushes. Ambushes and counter-ambushes are mutually beneficial. Oh, Kuei Tu's eyes lit up. Third brother seems to have the pearl of wisdom in his hands. Lam Tok Ti chuckled and went on slowly. The ancient race and ancient race must complement each other in order to display their absolute strength. Small-scale battles aren't their forte. Only in a real war can they display 120% of their strength. I believe the ancient race and ancient race have experienced 2 wars with the demonic beast clan and the extreme ancient race, so they are very clear about this. So, Kuei Tu pondered. Shi Jiuyin's face tightened, and the wine cup in his hand shattered with a pa sound. He said coldly, "They'll go straight for the shaman tribe's territory." That's right, Lam Tok Ti affirmed, and a sharp light flickered in his eyes. As long as they're not stupid, they'll definitely think of this method to counterattack. Shi Jiuyin's eyes tightened. Absolutely not. If the shaman tribe's territory is breached, it will be a devastating blow to our shaman tribe. We must withdraw at least half of our forces to defend the territory. Second brother, there's no need to panic. Lam Tok Ti looked at Shi Jiuyin confidently. With Big Brother's extreme ancient race leading the shaman tribe's territory, the ancient race and ancient race will definitely be defeated. The ancient race and ancient race don't know that our shaman tribe and extreme ancient race have formed an alliance. When the time comes, they'll be shocked. Sure, Jiuyin frowned. Didn't extreme ancient race suffer heavy losses in the previous battle? Can the remaining forces withstand the shaman tribe's attack? I'm afraid they can't. Kuei too spoke solemnly. Currently, extreme ancient race's strength has decreased by 70%. Facing the ancient race and ancient race at their peak, even if they have the advantage of defense, they won't be a match. Kuei Tu's face tightened as he looked at Lam Tok Ti. A cold light gleamed in his eyes as he said, "Third brother, are you trying to make me, extreme ancient race, a scapegoat?" Shi Jiuyin also looked at Huang Xiaolong, but no one could tell what he was thinking. Lam Tok Ti chuckled, shaking his head as he said, "Big brother and second brother seem to have forgotten that the shaman tribe's experts are not the only ones in the shaman tribe's territory. There are also those stupid natives who claim to be neutral. They are known as the strongest force in the Do spirit world, the heavenly spirit." Hua! In a split second, Shi Jiuyin and Kuei Tu's eyes lit up. Lam Tok Ti went on slowly. Extreme ancient race is the representative of the heavenly spirit world, gathering the elites of various neutral races. At that time, using extreme ancient race as a line, it will implicate the heavenly spirit world's neutral races, making them feel the change in the situation and the human race's hostility. Why don't Big Brother and Second Brother try to imagine, once the human race and ancient race's army reaches the shaman tribe's territory, how will the heavenly spirit world react? Shi Jiuyin and Kuei Tu's eyes met, and a sharp light flickered in their eyes. In an instant, both of them laughed heartily, feeling extremely uncomfortable. Driving the tiger to swallow the wolf, killing with a borrowed knife. Kuei Tu patted Lam Tok Ti's shoulder, praising, "Third brother is indeed the smartest among us three brothers. Only you can think of such a brilliant move. I'll go make arrangements now and instigate them. I guarantee those old fellows in the heavenly spirit world will be trembling in fear. When the human race and ancient race's army arrive, we'll be able to watch a good show and reap the spoils from the mountain." Shi Jiuyin sneered coldly. "They have occupied our shaman tribe's territory for so many years. It's time for the heavenly spirit world's neutral races to pay some interest." Killing intent flickered in Lam Tok Ti's eyes, but he sneered coldly. At that time, the human race and ancient race's defense will be weakened by at least 50%. Second brother will be able to gather the shaman tribe's army and surround the human race's territory. On my side, I have a large number of undead experts that have never shown their faces and will catch the human race and ancient race off guard. The plan is set. Now we just need to wait for the human race and ancient race's impatience. Lam Tok Ti said softly, "Will they see through our plan?" Kuei Tu asked hesitantly. Shi Jiuyin answered solemnly, "It's very difficult. Anyone would fall for it. No one knows that the shaman tribe and ancient race's sworn enemy are on the same side. As long as we continue to create pressure on the ancient race and human race, in terms of battle strength, spirit, and other aspects, I believe the human race and ancient race will take action soon. The only possible variable is human sovereign Lin Feng." Shi Jiuyin and Kuei Tu exclaimed in unison. Wariness flickered in their eyes. "Ha ha!" Lam Tok Ti laughed heartily. "Big brother, second brother, don't worry. I've already laid out an inescapable net." Hatred flashed in Lam Tok Ti's eyes, and a trace of malice appeared on his face as he said, "Just wait for Lin Feng, that brat, to appear. Come, let's toast to defeating the human race and ancient race. Cheers! Ha 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 ha!" Chapter 17:14. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. In the blink of an eye, Another 7 days had passed. Wandering aimlessly in the cemetery like a wandering soul, the world-destroying demon god was completely lost like an abandoned baby. To a newborn spirit like him, he did not know what to do and what he could do. He was only living by instinct. Although he had passed the weakened state, his spirit had used up all his strength to cast the world-destroying aurora twice in a row and had been in a deep sleep. The world-destroying demon god who only had his instincts walked and stopped in the cemetery, absorbing the remaining aura of death from time to time. He was in a daze from time to time, as if he had lost the meaning of living. "Let's continue like this," Lin Feng said softly. The injury of the doppelganger was much more serious than expected. After all, it was attacked by the aura of death, which was the enemy of the chi of heaven and earth. It was not something that could be done in a short period of time to expel the stubborn aura of death from every corner of his body. However, the progress of the doppelganger was not good, but the main body was rather proud. In a short period of time, the main body had already mastered the control of the god-destroying Yang altar. Although he had not cultivated and comprehended its unique ability, after all, it had only been a short time, but there were already signs of it. He was confident that he would be able to unleash the advanced ability of the god-destroying Yang altar within 10 days to a month or two. Body lock. However, blessings did not come repeatedly, and good luck would not always come. Roar, roar, Suddenly, the world-destroying demon god, who had been lingering in the cemetery, attacked crazily as if he had gone mad. As he roared, he smashed the ground. The power of his crazy attacks was terrifying. In a split second, the entire cemetery seemed to have collapsed, and the ground was shaking. Boom, boom. The attacks exploded again and again. The world-destroying demon god seemed to have lost his mind. His eyes were full of anger and madness. What's wrong with him? Lin Feng frowned slightly and felt that something was wrong. From the winged insect's vision, he could see some changes in the world-destroying demonic god. Its eyes, which were originally in a daze, seemed to have gained consciousness. However, it was the consciousness of rage. This feeling was very similar. It was very similar to the world-destroying demonic god that hated him in the restriction. There was less dullness and more anger. This was the real, primitive world-destroying demon god. Even if the spirit was only in its nascent state, this was its nature. Destruction symbolized death. In less than half an hour, the cemetery was razed to the ground. Pong! His last line of sight turned into darkness. Lin Feng opened his eyes and couldn't help but sigh. It was indeed a natural killing machine. In a short period of time, it had almost destroyed the entire cemetery. One had to know that he had only been able to destroy a small part of the cemetery, even after using all his strength. Comparing the two, the difference was obvious. But what was he doing? Venting? Lin Feng did not feel any fear. From his point of view, the world annihilation demon god was just seeking his own death. Consuming the aura of death like this would only speed up the process of death for him. No matter how he destroyed it, what did that have to do with him? Unless the world annihilation demon god used his strongest move, he would definitely not be able to destroy the Demon Emperor Island. In terms of defensive power, the Demon Emperor Island was not much weaker than the spinning top restriction, especially the restriction on the top layer of the Demon Emperor Island. The serpent-shaped pyramid was incomparably sturdy and had a defensive power that exceeded the Starry Sky level. It was the masterpiece of the 3,000 demon gods. On the contrary, he couldn't wait for the world annihilation demon god to come so that he could consume more of his strength and let him die faster. However, things like this often went against one's wishes. The world annihilation demon god seemed to know that the Demon Emperor Island was a lump of iron. After leaving the cemetery, he went in the opposite direction of the Demon Emperor Island and ignored the Demon Emperor Island. If he didn't come, Lin Feng couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't possibly appear and lure him out, or else he would end up worse off. Now that Lingji had returned, the world annihilation demon god was not to be trifled with. Although he had the upper hand, he was dragged to hell by the world annihilation demon god. That would be too unjust. Fortunately, the winged insects have already spread out. Lin Feng thought to himself. With a sufficient number of winged insects, he knew the world annihilation demon god's movements like the back of his hand. Although his flying speed was extremely fast, the winged insects had spread out for a few days, and their range was much wider. It was impossible for the world annihilation demon god to get rid of the winged insects in a short period of time. I wonder what he wants to do. Vent? Anger? Or is he struggling before his death? I'd like to see. Lin Feng smiled indifferently, and his heart was calm. In his opinion, the world annihilation demon god had no chance of survival. It was only a matter of time before he died. However, would it really be so smooth? The deity plane, the human and ancient race experts gathered together. At this moment, the atmosphere was already at daggers drawn, and there was a strong smell of gunpowder. He's going too far. We can't tolerate this. Attack. If we continue to tolerate this, it's over. Not only the ancient race experts, but also the human experts could not contain their anger. The sorcerer race army was like waves and pounced on every place except for the regions that were heavily guarded by the humans. Not only the ancient region was affected, but the human regions were also affected. The northeast and northwest regions, the two regions with the weakest defenses, were massacred by the sorcerer race. Although the humans had retreated at the fastest speed, they could not compare to the sorcerer race's ferocity. There were heavy casualties. The sorcerer race was extremely cruel. They killed ordinary people of the ancient race in the ancient region and ordinary people in the 9 major regions of the human race. Their huge bodies could trample ordinary people to death, let alone attack them. The human heart was made of flesh. Once or twice, they could still tolerate it. However, over and over again, the sorcerer tribe launched unbridled attacks. They did not care about the human race and the ancient race at all. They avoided the main force and attacked the weak points of the ordinary people. It could be said that they had stabbed into the weak points of every warrior. They despised and hated them deeply. Ordinary martial artists would not do such a thing to bully the weak at all. The sorcerer race under Sorcerer Emperor Zhang's rule had never acted like this, but the sorcerer race under Shi Jiuyin's command had turned into a devil overnight. They would do anything to achieve their goals. They did not care about the anger of the heavens and the resentment of the human race, killing until rivers of blood flowed. Shun, Gusheng, and Thousand Love Emperor's expressions were solemn, and the pressure was great. Lin Feng was not here, so the three of them were in charge of the alliance's affairs. Before this, they had come to a consensus that they would use defense to attack and use their strengths to defeat the enemy. After all, the human race and the ancient race had Lin Feng as their strong backing. They were not afraid of stalling for time with the sorcerer race, but now, the pressure was like a mountain pressing down on them. The pressure from the various races, the pressure from the experts, the pressure from the ordinary cultivators, and the pressure from the common people. Where did the invincible alliance go? Where were the brave warriors who didn't fear death? Right now, they only knew how to hide like turtles, allowing the sorcerer race to slaughter them, but they did not even dare to make a sound. The sorcerer race is bullying us again and again. I'm afraid there's a trap. Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes flickered, and she said softly, "They are forcing us to send out our troops, giving up our defensive position, and giving up our defensive formation." Gusheng frowned, and he said solemnly, "Attacking the sorcerer race face to face, we don't have the advantage. It's hard to win against them. But if we continue to endure, I'm afraid." Shun said worriedly and let out a long sigh. Whether it was the ancient race's side or the human race's side, they were on the verge of a riot. Gusheng was just a newly promoted ancient emperor, and Shun and Thousand Love Emperor did not have Lin Feng's tyrannical deterrence. They might be able to quell some of the troubles in the human race, but the current situation was too great to be suppressed. Under normal circumstances, the situation would only get worse and worse. In the end, the people's hearts would scatter and the cultivators would lose their fighting spirit. The gains would not make up for the losses. A dragon cannot do without a head. Whether it was the army or the race, they needed a true leader to face the situation and decide what to do. Let's fight. Gu Sheng's expression was ugly as he said these 3 words. This was not what he wanted, but it seemed that other than this, he could not think of any other possibility. Shun let out a long sigh and could not help but shake his head. His gaze swept across the human experts who were unable to endure the excitement and fighting spirit, and a trace of helplessness flashed across his heart. At this moment, a figure appeared in his mind, a seemingly ordinary human, but he had the aura of a true emperor. With a single call, all the humans would fight for him and listen to his orders. Lin Feng, there was a huge difference between having him and not having him. I'm afraid that's exactly what the sorcerer race wants. Thousand Love Emperor pursed her cherry lips, and a hint of hesitation flashed across her eyes. Although she was also a decision-maker, her status was weaker than Shun and Gu Sheng's. There's no other way. Gu Sheng gritted his teeth. Even if we have to give up our advantage, we have to give it a try. At the very least, we can't let the sorcerer race be so rampant. Shun nodded and said slowly, in my opinion, the sorcerer race's forces are scattered. It looks like they are fighting everywhere, but I'm afraid it's a trap. If we attack rashly, we will fall into their trap. Gu Sheng grunted in agreement, and his expression turned serious. Rather than splitting our forces and weakening our forces, why don't we unite our forces and fight the sorcerer race? Gu Sheng clenched his fists. An intense fighting spirit flashed across his eyes. The sorcerer race's strongest expert is Shi Jiuyin. He is definitely not my opponent. He was full of confidence. But Gu Sheng had the capital to be confident. He had been honed for a long time, and his current strength was not inferior to Sorcerer Emperor Dezhong's. The strength of a general would affect the direction of a war to a large extent. That's right. Shun pondered for a moment, and a trace of determination flashed across his eyes. He said seriously, Shi Jiuyin and Lam Tokti are good at playing tricks. They lure us to attack, and we will not attack. Create a diversion, and attack the sorcerer race's territory with absolute strength. Let's see if the sorcerer race dares to fight us. Even if we are evenly matched, at least the sorcerer race will be more restrained, and they won't dare to act recklessly. Gu Sheng added, if we can take advantage of the sorcerer race's territory, we will have the absolute advantage in the war with the sorcerer race. Let's do that. Shun and Gu Sheng exchanged a glance, and soon came to a consensus. Although they did not want to attack, the situation had forced them to take this path. Since that was the case, they had to find the best path to take. Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes flickered, looking at the two of them. She wanted to say something, but no words came out. Although there was a bad feeling in her heart, she couldn't put her finger on it. Moreover, Shun and Gu Sheng had already made their decision. Her opinion was no longer important, and the most important thing was, other than this, she couldn't think of any other way. Unless he comes back. Thousand Love Emperor muttered softly. Chapter 17:15. The war had broken out. After a long period of silence, the humans and the ancient race finally started to fight back. Facing the wizard race's repeated threats, not only did they start to fight back, they even sent their army to the wizard race's territory without hiding anything. Moreover, they could not hide anything, and there was no need to hide anything. It would be great if the wizard race could rush back to the wizard race's territory, but it would be even better if they could not. The war between the humans and the ancient race and the wizard race was unavoidable. It was mighty and full of fighting spirit. Little did they know that a conspiracy was waiting for them. The trap had been set. Demon Emperor Island. 10 days had passed since the world-destroying demon god left the cemetery. In these 10 days, more than 90% of the area was within the winged insect's observation range. It could be said that Lin Feng knew every move of the world-destroying demon god, but he was also deeply impressed by his ruthlessness. He was a complete monster, as if he did not know fatigue. He lived by killing, took pleasure in destruction, and took pleasure in destruction. Everywhere he passed, nothing was left. Islands in the endless sea were destroyed, from the initial islands inhabited by the demon race to the human islands that gradually moved away from the central area. If the world-destroying demon god was in a good mood, he would destroy the entire island or even sink it. If he was in a bad mood, he would simply massacre the island and enter it to kill until there was not a single life left. In just 10 days, hundreds of islands have been destroyed by it. The number of islands that were massacred was innumerable. The number of demon race and human experts that died in the hands of the world-destroying demon god was already astronomical. If it were an ordinary martial artist, he would have killed until his hands went limp, but he did not know fatigue at all. Instead, he became more and more excited and interested in killing. Previously, Lin Feng could not understand why the world-destroying demon god's killing behavior had not depleted the death aura. But later, he discovered a huge secret. The death aura. What was the death aura? The creation of the chi of heaven and earth came from the energy of life. What about the death aura? It was the opposite. If the chi of heaven and earth was the birth, then the death aura was the destruction. Regardless of whether it was demon race or human, there would be death aura when they died. Previously, Lin Feng did not notice it until he happened to be close to the winged insect's line of sight and saw it all. The world-destroying demon god greedily absorbed the death aura in the midst of killing and enjoyed it. Only then did he understand. He was simply nurturing war with war. We're in big trouble. Lin Feng was extremely vexed and had been frowning for several days. I thought that the world-destroying demonic god would be unable to recover after losing the source of the aura of death. Who would have thought that he would go berserk and use battle to fuel battle? Now, his complexion looked even better than before. Not only did the consumption of the aura of death not decrease, it even seemed to be increasing. He was not sure. Even if there was an increase, it would be very weak. However, this was not the way to go. With his tireless slaughtering ability, he would probably wipe out the islands one by one while leaving himself unscathed. He wasn't worried about the extinction of the demon race's island, nor did he care about it. As for the extinction of the human race's island, although his heart ached, he was almost numb to it. After all, with his current strength, he couldn't stop the world-destroying demon god at all. But the direction that the world-exterminating demon god was heading toward was precisely where the Sky Martial continent was located. Although the endless sea domain was boundless, and the world-exterminating demon god might not be able to pass by the Sky Martial continent, it was better to be safe than sorry. Furthermore, even if the Sky Martial continent could escape this calamity, it would only be for a short while. He had absolute reason to believe that the world-exterminating demon god had the ability to wipe out all the islands in the endless sea domain, even the entire Doling world. He existed for the sole purpose of killing and destroying. What should he do? Lin Feng was extremely vexed. The feeling of danger was surging in wave after wave, causing him to feel extremely uneasy. Although the world-exterminating demon god was constantly killing, his speed was much faster than the winged bug. After 10 days, the winged bug was almost unable to catch up with the world-exterminating demon god. The heavens was about to disappear, and he was unable to lock onto the world-exterminating demon god's position. Huge crisis. The probability of him entering the Sky Martial continent is only 20 to 30%. But what if he really arrives? Lin Feng's heart was pounding. That was a calamity, a true doomsday. What made him the most vexed was, based on the world-exterminating demon god's current speed, the time he would reach the Sky Martial continent would be 7 days later. 7 days, what can I do in 7 days? I can't wait any longer. Lin Feng clenched his teeth and thought to himself, the 20 to 30% probability is already very high. I have to immediately rush back to the Sky Martial continent to make arrangements and avoid it for as long as possible. Although I am unable to evacuate all the citizens of the Sky Martial continent, but at least I can reduce the danger. The risk is too big, and I dare not take the risk. Sky Martial continent, the Kingdom of Meru. Even though there were disasters after disasters, from the initial beast wave to the chaos of the little heavenly dog, all kinds of calamities came one after another. But, under Lin Yun's rule, everything was flourishing and peaceful. The Kingdom of Meru had statues of the Holy King, Lin Feng, erected everywhere for the citizens and martial artists to worship. Into the Kingdom of Meru, Lin Feng was the true, supreme existence. Since then, he had risen, repelled the beast wave, and protected the citizens of the Kingdom of Meru time and time again. In the hearts of the citizens, Lin Feng was a god, an omnipotent god. There was no war here because there was no powerhouse or martial artist that could shake Lin Feng's position. Just the experts that Lin Feng had arranged to protect the Lin family were enough to shock people. Hong Ling, who was born in the Thousand Snake Cave, and the rainbow poison python, who had an immortal body, were now fixed in the Sky City, like guardian gods. Ziyao, Qin Xian, Yuma, Huang Yin, Lin Feng's 4 wives and children, mother, brother, and sister, were also living a peaceful and warm life. But this time the peace was broken. "Brother, is there really no other way?" Lin Yin frowned and asked hesitantly. "No." Lin Feng's expression was calm as he said affirmatively. Lin Yin looked at Lin Feng, the big brother that he had always regarded as his idol and goal. Although there was no difference in his expression, he clearly knew how terrifying the strength of the world-destroying demon god was for his big brother to say such words. Because according to the description of his 4 sisters-in-law, especially Huang Yin, who was the strongest, they all told him with certainty, Lin Feng, their husband, was now the strongest person in the Douling world. There was no dispute. "But now I understand, brother." Lin Yin nodded, and his eyes were bright. "I will arrange it immediately. Those inscription masters that you brought over half a year ago have actually built many transmission channels. But the population of the Kingdom of Meru is too large now, and there are less than 7 days left to migrate," sighing softly. Lin Yin also felt a little headache. There were about 300 transmission channels in the Kingdom of Meru, which was actually quite a lot. But the transmission channels needed to consume energy after all, and there was a cooldown limit, including the distance, size, material, and so on. On average, each transmission channel needed more than 40 seconds to transmit one person. A transmission channel could transmit 2,000 people a day, which was 14,000 people in 7 days. With more than 300 transmission channels, 7 days of nonstop transmission would only be able to transmit less than 5 million people. 5 million seemed to be a large number, but 5 million was not even 1% of the total population of the Kingdom of Meru. "Be prepared for the worst," Lin Feng said slowly. Looking at his younger brother's expression, he more or less knew the difficulty in his heart. However, no matter what, he had to think of a way out for the country of hunters. It was better to be safe than sorry. If the world-destroying demon god came 7 days later, could it be that the entire country of hunters would be buried with him? Lin Yin nodded. Suddenly, as if he thought of something, he looked at Lin Feng and asked, "Brother, what about you?" "I have my own plans," Lin Feng replied. He did not answer Lin Yin directly, but in fact, he still did not have an answer in his heart. She couldn't bear to. Extremely unwilling. The feelings for the Kingdom of Meru were even more important than the entire Douling world in his heart. This was the hometown where he grew up. Here, there was a group of people who loved him and trusted him unconditionally. Here, there were too many memories. Lin Feng placed his hands behind his back and looked up at the sky. His heart was filled with mixed feelings. The current situation was too complicated. "Let's wait and see." Lin Feng sighed softly. The Endless Sea domain was so huge. Although the world-destroying demon god was heading in this direction, he might not necessarily pass by the Sky Martial continent, or he might change his route at the last moment. Until the last moment, anything could happen, and he did not have to make such a difficult decision. But if the world-destroying demon god really came, could he just watch as the Kingdom of Meru was destroyed? Lin Feng closed his eyes and clenched his fists tightly. The small-scale migration had begun. In order to avoid causing unnecessary panic, Lin Yun did not spread the news. In fact, Lin Feng only told his 4 wives about it. He did not even tell his mother, Lin Wanqing. Lin Feng naturally would not migrate his family. He only needed to move them to the Netherworld ship to ensure their safety. Even if the entire Douling world was destroyed, the Netherworld ship would not be damaged. Although the Netherworld ship did not have sufficient energy, according to Duo, leaving the Douling world and entering the Starry Sky world was not a big problem. Of course, Lin Feng would not abandon the human race and the entire Douling world just to escape. If he did that, he would not be Lin Feng. The migration was proceeding smoothly. Because the kingdom of Meru was plagued with disasters, Lin Yun, who was vigilant even in times of peace, had already simulated such situations countless times. The protection of the descendants and elites of the kingdom of Meru could be said to be perfect. Over 300 teleportation channels were all opened, and the teleportation was arranged in an orderly manner. They announced that they were opening up a new continent and did not arouse any suspicions. After all, even if the world-destroying demon god did not appear, the kingdom of Meru was already making arrangements for the opening up of various continents. City in the sky. Lin Feng stood at the edge, looking down at the entire land with his brows tightly knitted. He was feeling very uncomfortable. After coming to the Sky Martial continent for close to a day and a night, regardless of whether it was making arrangements with his younger brother, Lin Yun, or reuniting with his family and wives, there was an inexplicable sense of irritation and uneasiness in his heart. It was as if there was a thorn stuck in his throat, and it was indescribably uncomfortable. Previously, he thought it was because of the world-destroying demon god, but it was not. Chapter 17:16. Thump, thump. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Closing his eyes and pressing his chest, he could feel that the frequency of his heartbeat was a little faster than before. Every time he encountered danger, his vigilance would appear. This was something he had never doubted, because every time it happened, it really happened. But in the vast Sky Martial continent, what was it that kept triggering him? Lin Feng's face was solemn, his eyes sparkling. Something was wrong, but he could not find a reason. Seems like even without the appearance of the world-exterminating demon god, the kingdom of Meru, seems like something has happened. Lin Feng nodded secretly. His intuition had always been accurate, and his suspicions were not baseless. It was useless to ask his brother. If there was something wrong with the kingdom of Meru, with his brother Lin Yun's vigilance and cautiousness, he would definitely notice it and tell him. But he did not, and even he did not notice anything. This was obviously not simple. Wing, Lin Feng called out. In an instant, Wing appeared beside him. They had been fighting side by side for a long time, and they already had a tacit understanding. The moment Wing appeared, he revealed his original form, deeply rooted above Sky City. Branches and leaves grew out crazily, accompanied by the flickering of red and green light. Winged insects covered the sky and flew in all directions. There was no need to keep an eye on the world-exterminating demon god. Because his speed was too fast, he had already exceeded the surveillance range of the winged insects. After leaving some of the winged insects on Demon Emperor Island and the cemetery, Wing immediately came to Sky Martial continent. Even without this detection, Lin Feng would have arranged for Wing to come, with Sky Martial continent as the center, forming a surveillance range. This way, even if the world-exterminating demon god came, he would know in advance. And now, help me search every corner of Sky Martial continent. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. No problem, boss. Wing gladly agreed. To him, this was an extremely simple matter. Although it was a continent, it was actually an island. Furthermore, amongst the tens of thousands of islands, the Sky Martial continent's surface area was not considered large. It was not even 1/10 the size of the Demon Emperor Island. Very quickly, whoosh whoosh, scene after scene appeared before his eyes. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he clearly discerned every detail. He knew very well that the source of this tiny sensation might have come from a tiny place that was difficult to see. From 1 to 10, from 10 to 100 to 1,000 to 10,000. Compared to the winged insect's speed of expansion, the winged insect's speed of expansion was much faster. Other than some unreachable areas, such as the remains and the four most dangerous lands, the winged insects quickly covered the rest. However, he still found nothing. Lin Feng frowned. It was extremely unusual. Be 10 times more meticulous. Lin Feng did not hesitate. He did not believe that he could not find a reason. Yes, boss. Wing obeyed the order and moved. In a split second, more winged insects flew out. They were a black mass that seeped into every corner of the kingdom of Meru. To Wing, who had tens of millions of winged insects, scouting and probing were his forte. 30 minutes. 15 minutes. 2 hours. Lin Feng's expression was solemn, not a hair out of place. He felt a faint sense of unease in his heart, because until now, he had not found anything suspicious. It was hidden very deeply. He did not doubt it. Lin Feng was very sure of his own judgment. There was definitely something wrong. Could it be inside the remains? Lin Feng thought to himself. Could it be inside the 1,000-snake cave or the 10,000-bone ruin realm? It can't be the Rashomon purgatory, right? Lin Feng's heart sank. As the head of the four most dangerous lands, the Rashomon purgatory was in no way inferior to the world-destroying demon god. If the problem really came from the Rashomon purgatory, then it would be extremely serious. It shouldn't be. Lin Feng immediately denied. If it was the sense of danger from the Rashomon purgatory, the warning would not be so weak. Was it the 10,000-bone ruin? Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. That's right, underground. I forgot about what's underground. The Hunting Nation isn't a real continent, but an island. There's an ocean under the island, and there are natural dangers. There are even peerless, ferocious beasts that live in the ocean, and so on. Perhaps the danger is underground. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Very quickly, he instructed the winged bug to go from the top to the bottom. The winged bug was indeed the trump card for scouting. It could go to the sky, drill into the ground, and even go into the ocean. A portion of the winged bug went from the ground, while the majority of the winged bug went around the edge of the sky martial continent and infiltrated into the ocean, carrying out scouting without any blind spots. Bit by bit, time slowly passed, until Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He clenched his right fist. That's it. At the bottom of the sky martial continent, in the depths of the ocean, the blue ocean was calm and full of bubbles. From time to time, there would be many giant fish and water monsters swimming past. All of them were extremely old and had terrifying strength. To be able to survive in the depths of the ocean and withstand such terrifying water pressure, these giant fish and water monsters were definitely not ordinary creatures. They could be said to be the top of the food chain in the ocean. However, these giant fish and water monsters that were usually arrogant and despotic looked as if they had seen a ghost. They desperately fled, not daring to get close to the water area. In that water area, there was a faint light and an ordinary black figure. Lin Feng. Flames flickered. Lin Feng stood in the middle of the water. Like a pair of fire sticks, he looked forward with a deep gaze. Lin Feng's breathing was slightly hurried. His expression was not good, as if he was suppressing the anger in his heart. He faintly revealed a terrifying aura and killing intent, causing the giant fish and water monsters with terrifying strength to flee in panic. It was a huge engraved pattern formation that was more than 10,000 meters long. The threads were connected, like a spider entangling another spider. The black and white light had a fatal chill, causing people to tremble. Such a huge formation was unprecedented. The terrifying energy that faintly seeped out was even more terrifying. It was comparable to the attack of a Saint King. And this was only a part of the energy. What a terrifying engraved pattern formation. Lin Feng was shocked, his eyes flashing. In the Douling world, he had never seen such a huge engraved pattern formation. It was not even recorded in the records. Whether it was the size or the energy that it emitted, this seemed to have reached the limit of the engraved pattern formation. The black and white light was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper, placed on the neck of the Tianwu continent. Pong! Lin Feng's mind instantly flashed with that terrifying moment. If the power of this engraved pattern formation was completely unleashed, what kind of situation would it be? Closing his eyes, Lin Feng's chest rose and fell rapidly. At that moment, he saw the collapse of the Tianwu continent, the explosion of the Earth's core, and with a violent earthquake, it crazily collapsed and sank to the bottom of the sea. Cries and shouts rose and fell one after another. That was the end of the world, the end of the kingdom of Meru. Perhaps ordinary warriors would not die, but more than 90% of the people would die in this terrifying disaster. And most importantly, the kingdom of Meru that he had single-handedly created would disappear forever. Pan! Lin Feng instantly opened his eyes, and a sharp light shot out. Never. He would never allow such a tragedy to happen. He had to destroy it. But how? Pulling one hair would affect the whole body. Attacking it was equivalent to detonating it, and the disaster of the Tianwu continent would descend even faster. Lin Feng's eyes were bright, but his heart had calmed down. Indeed, the previous him did not have a way. Even if it was a month ago, he would not be able to destroy it without damaging the Tianwu continent at all. But now he had more than 90% confidence that he could break this huge engraved pattern formation. God-destroying congregate altar, a treasure that was almost on the same level as the Pangu armor. It was compatible with the God-destroying congregate altar. Lin Feng knew how powerful it was. His main body would not be stupid enough to bear the power of the explosion. The moment his main body left, the fireball hit the center of the black and white engraved pattern formation. Bang! It was terrifying. It exploded in an instant. Chapter 17:17. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The Tianwu continent had an inexplicably violent earthquake, causing the people to cry out in alarm, but they did not know what had happened. It was a rare scene. One by one, the warriors appeared, their cultivation interrupted by the inexplicable earthquake. Even Lin Yin was puzzled. After all, the kingdom of Meru had never had such a strong earthquake. It felt as if the end of the world was coming. Thinking of the imminent appearance of the world-destroying demon god, Lin Yin could not help but frown. It was hard not to think of that, and the continuation of the earthquake would also cause panic among the people. But, fortunately, the earthquake only lasted for about half an hour before it slowly stopped. The people and the warriors discussed with each other. They were curious about the sudden earthquake, but they could not figure it out. Even Lin Yin was confused. Naturally, they didn't know that just a moment ago, the nation of hunters had overcome another crisis. At the bottom of the sea, whoosh, a light flashed. Lin Feng put away the god-destroying Yang altar and heaved a sigh of relief. The thunder was loud, but the rain was small. The explosion of the entire black-white inscription array was completed in an instant. It was indeed a small matter that affected the entire situation. Unfortunately, the shocking explosive power was unable to break even a little bit of the defense of the god-destroying gathering Yang altar. Other than causing some slight tremors, it was of no other use. It ended so simply. It's not that the power of the inscription's array is weak. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. It's that the defense of the god-destroying Yang altar is too strong. It's far beyond. Lin Feng was pleasantly surprised when he personally tested the ability of the god-destroying Yang altar. The defense of the god-destroying Yang altar was much stronger than he had imagined. If he learned its advanced ability, Body Lock, it would be like adding wings to a tiger. Its power would be extraordinary. Even if he entered the Starry Sky level, the god-destroying Yang altar should be able to help him improve a lot. Unfortunately, after many days of cultivation, he could only master the basic ability of the god-destroying Yang altar. He was still in the exploration stage of its Body Lock ability. I didn't expect there to be such a terrifying thing beneath the Martial Heaven continent. Lin Feng secretly felt lucky. If it was not for his intuition, it would be impossible for him to know about the existence of this gigantic engraved formation, and he had just witnessed its power with his own eyes. Blowing up the sky Marshall continent could be said to be a piece of cake. Where did it come from? Lin Feng's eyes sparkled, and he was puzzled. His intuition had always been very accurate. If it had always been lying quietly in the sky Marshall continent, he should have sensed it long ago. Or was it because he wasn't strong enough that day and couldn't sense it? If it's just a coincidence, then it's fine. But what I'm most afraid of is that there seems to be someone eyeing the Marshall Heaven continent from behind. Lin Feng's gaze was as sharp as an eagle's. What was scary was never a direct challenge. Instead, it was an insidious plot. Inspect. He continued to dig 3 feet into the ground to investigate. After removing the terrifying giant inscription formation underground, Lin Feng did not relax at all. Instead, he became even more cautious. If there was one, then there must be another. If this was really done by someone, then what was his goal? What good would it do him to blow up the sky Marshall continent? The target should be me. Lin Feng's gaze was burning. If he couldn't even understand this point, then he would be too stupid. In the entire sky Marshall continent, the kingdom of Maru stood aloof from worldly affairs. Only his reputation was too resounding, and he had an important position in the Douling world. If they wanted to defeat him face to face, as long as they were a little more rational, they would know that it was impossible. But to deal with him, they might not necessarily have to defeat him face to face. Weakness. It was like hitting the weak spot of a snake. Wah! Lin Feng's eyes instantly lit up, and his figure suddenly disappeared from Sky City. Gravity Energy Control Room. This was the core part of Sky City. It had an anti-gravity device and the entire trays operation, as well as a circulating mechanical device that conserved energy. This was a sealed area, and it was also one of the areas that winged insects could not enter. Swish! Lin Feng appeared in an instant, his gaze cold. On the ground below the anti-gravity device, a black and white inscription formation was clearly engraved. It was deeply entwined like a spider, causing one's hair to stand on end. Although the size was different, the feeling and energy of this inscription formation was exactly the same. It was simply carved out from the same mold. As expected, Lin Feng squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth, his heart filled with anger. This was even more shocking than the huge inscription formation that he found under the sky Marshall continent. It made him feel cold all over. Almost. Just a little bit more. What would happen if this inscription formation exploded? Would it explode and collapse Sky City? No, it would be destruction. Sky City was just an inch of land. How could it withstand this explosion? Although the power of this mini inscription formation was far inferior to the huge inscription formation that he found before, according to his own estimation, it should be equivalent to an attack from a sage king. Perhaps Huang Yin, Ziyao, and Yuma will be safe and sound. But what about his mother, Qian, who was slightly weaker, and his newborn children? So vicious. Lin Feng clenched his fists so tightly that blood seemed to be oozing out. It was hard to imagine that scene, and it made his heart almost tear into pieces. Who was so insidious to come up with such a method to frame him? He almost made him regret it for the rest of his life. Such a deep grudge. Bang! Once again, the threat was removed. However, Lin Feng's face was still ashen, and it was difficult for him to recover for a while. The strength of this hidden enemy was not ordinary. To be able to install an inscription formation in the heavily guarded Sky City, he was at least one of the best among the Sage Kings. There must be a purpose for him to be so far-sighted to deal with him. And from the looks of it, it seemed to be a threat. If it was purely to deal with him, wouldn't it be faster to just detonate it? No matter who you are, I will find you. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with killing intent. He was never afraid of a head-on confrontation. Even if it was a Pang-Ran monster like the world-destroying demon god, he dared to fight with him. However, such a sinister and vicious move was impossible to guard against. The slightest carelessness could cause him to be smashed into pieces. Two threats were eliminated in a row. However, it made Lin Feng even more vigilant and careful. He searched the entire Tianwu continent, not letting go of any clues. As long as it was an area that the winged insects could not enter, he would personally enter to investigate. Facing the danger of his family and the disaster of the kingdom of Meru, he had no choice but to do so. This time, he searched for a full 12 hours. Only when he was completely sure that there was no threat did Lin Feng relax slightly. But there were still two dangerous places that had not been explored. The first of the four dangerous places, the Luoshang Purgatory, and the second one, the Myriad Bone Ruin. Even I can't get close to the Luoshang Purgatory, let alone others. Lin Feng's eyes flickered, and his body was like lightning. In an instant, he broke through the air and stepped on the ground. Only the Myriad Bone Ruin is left. He was not sure about the Myriad Bone Ruin. However, it was better to be safe than sorry. He could enter the Myriad Bone Ruin to check it out. Furthermore, with his current strength, the threat of the Myriad Bone Ruin was actually not that great. It was just a simple matter to enter and take a look. Why not? Looking into the distance, Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. A sinister and cold wind blew over. The air here was filled with the aura of death, decay, and stillness. It was a desolate border area. There was a huge cemetery that stretched as far as the eye could see. The tombstones were crooked, and there was not even a blade of grass growing on the sandy land. The huge cemetery was shrouded in a strange atmosphere. All kinds of illusions flashed, and there were ear-piercing cries that sounded like vengeful spirits. In the center, there was a dark and empty existence. Over there, it was the real Myriad Bone Ruin. Boom! The moment he stepped in, the surroundings were dark and silent. Countless ghosts of the underworld surged out in an instant. There seemed to be an invisible barrier at the border, sealing off everything. When Lin Feng entered, it was as though he had entered a different space. Everything was different, completely different. Magnetic field. Ayo. Wang. Noises kept ringing in his ears, and illusions kept appearing in front of his eyes. However, in an instant, pa. The illusions were shattered, like moths flying into a flame. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. With the strength of the Pangu pupil, these illusions were nothing. Step by step, Lin Feng entered. Once upon a time, he could not even step into the border. This place was described as a ghost town. However, the Myriad Bone Ruin seemed to be shorter in front of him. It was no longer as mysterious as before. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In front of him, he saw a strange and twisted tombstone. However, as he approached, the tombstone instantly returned to normal. His mind felt like it was being devoured by 10,000 ghosts, but it disappeared in an instant. I'm here. Lin Feng stopped. This was an area that winged insects could not enter. It was also the destination he reached when he entered the Myriad Bone Ruin for the second time. That day, he wanted to enter, but Shui Yume stopped him and brought him back to the Water Curtain Cave to see the heavenly secret Saint Lord. Myriad Bone Ruin. Lin Feng read the words on the tombstone and could not help but sigh. When he entered the Myriad Bone Ruin again, everything had changed. The heavenly secret Saint Lord had spent his entire life suppressing the Myriad Bone Ruin with the 100 waterfalls. Now, his soul had returned to the heavenly road. He passed his mantle to Fong Ning and handed the Water Curtain Cave to Shui Yume. In the battle against the monster race, the reason why the humans could win was because of the Water Curtain Cave's experts. Don't worry, Senior. I will definitely do what I promised you. Lin Feng's eyes were cold, flashing with strong determination and persistence. His body left a faint afterimage as he stepped over the Myriad Bone Ruin's tombstone and entered the real Myriad Bone Ruin. Great energy. Lin Feng's face was serious. When he entered the real Myriad Bone Ruin, he could see the gray energy that had gathered into a haze. All the illusions, including the mental attacks, originated from this gray energy. It was of the same origin as the death energy, but it was fundamentally different. It was just like the difference between star source energy and heaven and earth energy. The gray energy was one level lower than the death energy. Moreover, the death energy increased the strength of warriors in all aspects. The gray energy was more used on the mind and the mind. However, it really is similar. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Not long ago, he could not tell the difference between the two. It was enough to pass off as the real thing. Lin Feng slowly entered the depths of the 10,000-bone scorpion. Lin Feng was no stranger to the 10,000-bone scorpion. The heavenly secret Saint Sovereign knew the 10,000-bone scorpion the best. Furthermore, Lin Feng had learned about the 10,000-bone scorpion's true appearance from Feng Ning. What he saw became clearer. Lin Feng's eyes became colder. Chapter 17:18. His face was cold and even ashen. Walking out of the foggy area shrouded in gray energy, looking at the ripple-shaped space in front of him, which was sparkling with a strange white light, Lin Feng couldn't help but clench his fists and grind his teeth. Although this was the first time he had seen the ripples of space suspended in midair, he had already learned about them from Feng Ning. This was the real entrance, or rather, the exit of the 10,000-bone puppet. It was not unfamiliar, nor was it terrifying, nor was there anything to be angry about. However, just below this ripple-shaped space pattern, there was once again an incomparably familiar inscription formation. It was like a spider winding layer after layer, exuding a unique energy that made people shudder. The third engraved array discovered in the Tianmu continent. It was actually hidden in the core area of the 10,000-bone puppet. It was extremely insidious. If he had been more careful, he might have been able to discover the previous two engraved arrays. However, who could discover the engraved array here other than himself? Without the willpower of a peak Saint King, it was impossible to break through the gray energy haze area. What a vicious heart. One trap after another, so cautious. The veins on Lin Feng's arms bulged, his heart filled with anger and fear. The enemy hiding in the dark was obviously very scheming. He had set up traps again and again, and it was getting harder and harder to break through. Going to such lengths just to threaten him. His intentions were obvious. Even if he had broken the first two traps, if he had not discovered this engraved array, the consequences would have been unimaginable. The ripples of space in front of him would be completely shattered, and the suppression of the 100 Falls would be destroyed. At that time, the monsters trapped in the 10,000-bone puppet would swarm out. They were old monsters that had been trapped for countless years. As long as they were still alive, they were all terrifying existences at the peak of the Saint King realm. At that time, the Doling world would definitely be in chaos. However, before that, the kingdom of Meru would be used as a target to vent their anger and be slaughtered. Phew! Exhaling deeply, Lin Feng's face turned cold. He didn't even consider instantly using the god-destroying gathering altar to wrap up the spider pattern formation. Lin Feng controlled the spatial ripples to separate them. This was not a big problem for him. He detonated it again without any effort. The spider rune formation was instantly destroyed. The threat was gone. Lin Feng put away the god-destroying congregating yang altar. The winged insect had already searched the kingdom of Meru and did not miss anything. Apart from the Luoshang purgatory, there was no other place where the spider's inscription formation could be found. Even he could not enter the former. If the enemy was really so powerful, then this disaster was really unavoidable. He could only accept it. However, the possibility of this happening was close to zero. 10,000-bone scorpion. Lin Feng looked at the entrance in front of him, his eyes sparkling. With the threat gone, his main body had nothing else to do. He had reached a bottleneck in his cultivation of the advanced ability of the god-destroying, congregating yang altar, body lock. It would be difficult for him to make a breakthrough in a short period of time. Now that he had such a place to train, wouldn't it be a pity to waste it? He could not find many opponents in the Doling world, but in the 10,000-bone scorpion, there were quite a few opponents who were on par with him. With the god-destroying, congregating Yang altar, even if I can't defeat them, I can trap them in it and find time to escape. And this is just the worst-case scenario. With my current strength, ordinary peak Saint Kings are no match for me at all. Lin Feng's eyes were bright, flashing with a strong fighting spirit. There is not much time left in 7 days. The stronger my main body is, the better. Let's do it. A thought flashed through Lin Feng's mind as he nodded. With a deep shout, flames condensed in his hand. The phoenix star seal on his forehead flashed with bright colors, like a phoenix soaring in the sky. The rich flames were quickly compressed. In Lin Feng's hand, they flashed with a terrifying light and became bigger little by little. Fireball. Flames were the most basic attack, but at the same time, it was also the most solid attack. Just like spear arts, no matter how complicated a spear art was, it was evolved from a basic spear art. Although the fireball attack pattern was simple, its power could be infinitely stacked. Simply put, the power of the fireball was determined by the strength of the celestial spirit master who cast it. The gathering of power was very slow. Although it seemed slow, the fireball's power had long surpassed the starry sky level. With Lin Feng's current strength, any random fireball attack could erupt with terrifying power, let alone a fireball that had been condensed to the extreme. He wanted to break the defense of the 100 waterfalls. To enter the 10,000 bone scorpion, he first had to break the defense of the 100 waterfalls. According to Feng Ning, a peak Saint King could not do it. Indeed, even the attack power of the doppelganger could not break the defense of the 100 waterfalls, but it was different for the main body, because the power of the flames could be accumulated. Most importantly, Lin Feng's soul was strong enough, and his willpower was even more terrifying. Therefore, he could control the power of the flames. This was also the reason why the main body wanted to learn the advanced ability of the god, destroying, sun, gathering, altar, body lock. Once the enemy was locked, Lin Feng was confident that he could kill even a starry sky level powerhouse. Bang! Screech! The firelight was dense, and the terrifying power kept stacking, like a demon growing power. Feeling the shocking fireball in his hand, there was an uncontrollable shock. Even Lin Feng felt his heart tremble, and his eyes lit up completely. It was almost the limit. Go! Lin Feng roared, using almost all of his strength to throw the fireball. Indeed, he threw it. The fireball's power was so strong that it could not be controlled. Rumble. The speed of the fireball was not fast. Even a saint-level powerhouse could dodge it, but the strange and powerful ripples in the space could not be avoided. The fire of rebirth shone around Lin Feng's body, forming a simple defense. In an instant, there was a thunderous roar, and the entire 10,000 bones nest shook violently, and the shocking firelight enveloped the entire area. Boom! Shocking explosions rang out incessantly, and Lin Feng's original position was already gone. Whoosh! A black figure appeared instantly. His whole body was emitting a blazing firelight. The 90th layer of the fire of rebirth had extremely strong defensive power, and it would not be affected by the attack. In the instant after the explosion, Lin Feng endured the power of the explosion and directly entered the 10,000 bones nest. Time was limited. The strongest attack that gathered all the power of the main body was indeed powerful, but it only broke the defense of the 100 waterfalls, and the 100 waterfalls had the ability to repair itself. Otherwise, the old monsters trapped in the 10,000 bones nest would have exhausted the defense of the 100 waterfalls long ago. Moreover, how could the sudden shattering of the exit of the 10,000 bones nest not attract attention? They really came. Although the 10,000 bones nest was full of gray energy, Lin Feng could still clearly see the appearance of 3 figures, and these were probably just the tip of the iceberg of the 10,000 bones nest powerhouses. More powerhouses would soon come, because they would never let go of any chance to get out, and he would not let them leave. The consequences of letting out every monster here would be unimaginable. The remnants of the second great Magi Demon War. Lin Feng's expression was cold. The three demon race powerhouses that appeared in front of him were undoubtedly at the peak of the Saint King level, and each of them was no weaker than the Blood Tiger Emperor, Kuei Tianyuan. Perhaps their talents were not top-notch, but after being trapped here for so long as they did not die, they had all cultivated into demons. It was a good opportunity to test the Yang altar. Feeling the strong fighting spirit, Lin Feng was also in high spirits. It had been a long time since his blood boiled like this. Fierce battle. It was 1 against 3, and it was a quick battle. Lin Feng did not waste any time. After all, the gap in the 100 falls behind him had not been completely closed, and now was not the time of practice. Although the three demon race powerhouses were strong, they were suppressed by the domain of the Yang altar. Their combined strength was not necessarily stronger than the normal Blood Tiger Emperor, Kuei Tianyuan. How could they be a match for Lin Feng? In less than 10 seconds, they were killed. Merciless. They should have died long ago. Lin Feng's eyes shot out a cold light. These demon race powerhouses trapped in the 10,000 Bones nest had slaughtered countless human powerhouses during the Second Great Magi Demon War. At that time, humans were still under the control of the wizard race, like slaves, and played the role of cannon fodder in the Great Magi Demon War, used to consume the strength of the demon race powerhouses. The first one to discover the 10,000 Bones nest was Ji. At that time, Ji Huang had been secretly accumulating power, waiting for the best time to make Tianling rise and take back their homeland. After discovering the great energy, the Emperor of Extremity was overjoyed. It was a very special kind of energy that could change a martial artist's heart and make them lose their sense of self. To a certain extent, it was very similar to the aura of death. During the decades of the Great Magi Demon War, Ji Huang secretly captured countless Sage and Saint King level witch and demon race powerhouses and threw them into the 10,000 Bones nest to let it absorb the gray energy. Unfortunately, he failed in the end. Indeed, the gray energy could change the heart of a cultivator, but that was only for cultivators who did not have strong enough willpower. When a cultivator had the willpower of a Saint King, they could easily isolate the gray energy. Some talented cultivators could even use the gray energy to increase their strength. The result of failure was death. Ji Huang could not release these witch and demon race powerhouses because once they escaped, Ji Huang's ambition and purpose would be exposed in front of the witch and demon race. This would be a great disaster for Ji Huang and Tianling. Ji Huang sacrificed himself and used his entire life's effort to seal the 10,000 Bones nest. He even used the 100 waterfalls to suppress it. This secret was originally an extremely secretive one, but after many twists and turns, the heavenly secret Saint Lord obtained it. The 10,000 Bones nest was indeed terrifying. Just by looking at the only one who escaped, the demon Kuei II, it was enough to cause a bloodbath in the Douling world. But these old monsters who had lived for countless years, in front of the current Lin Feng, they were merely sparring partners. Chapter 17-19. Strong? These old monsters were indeed very strong, but there would always be someone stronger. How could Lin Feng, who dared to barge into the 10,000 Bones nest, be described as a demon's den, be described with the word strong? It was true that the strong were bold. Boom, boom, boom. Attack after attack, the old monsters were quickly killed. In less than half an hour, Lin Feng had killed a total of 18 peak Saint Kings. They were not inferior to the demon Kuei II, and the strongest among them was almost comparable to Huang Jifu. Their average strength was only slightly lower than the Witch King Jiang. Here, there is nothing but cultivation. Only by cultivating can one break out, so the efficiency of cultivation can be maximized. Secondly, the gray energy is special and powerful. King Ju also absorbed the gray energy that day. Although he lost his mind because of the gray energy, his strength has undoubtedly increased by a level. These old monsters have not lost their minds, but there's a reaction of the gray energy in their bodies. Obviously, They have integrated the gray energy for their own use, and their strength is increased by a level. There were traces of their strength. However, the upper limit was almost there. Pa! It was a very soft sound, but it clearly reached his heart. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He could clearly feel the 100 Falls defense closing, as if a gap had been filled, and he could no longer feel the aura of the outside world. Sure enough, in an instant, there were furious roars. It was hysterical anger. The witch and monster race experts' eyes were blood red, and their expressions were desperate and painful. What could make them happier than seeing the exit and finally being able to escape? But almost instantly, their hope was cruelly killed. Despair, venting, eruption, all kinds of emotions gushed out. In an instant, the experts from the Sorcerer Tribe and the Demon Clan abandoned their hatred and rushed over. More than a dozen attacks were directed at Lin Feng, clearly treating him as a target to vent their frustrations. The power and range of the attacks were impossible to dodge. Lin Feng was instantly forced into a desperate situation. But, however, Lin Feng didn't panic at all. Instead, the corners of his mouth curved up slightly. He could finally start practicing. God-destroying congregate altar. Lin Feng once again took out this super treasure. The flashing light instantly expelled the gray energy, but this time it was completely different from before. The appearance of the God-destroying Yang altar only enveloped one, the only Demon Clan expert. As for the others, it was as if it had been locked out of the door. With a look of shock and surprise, it instantly roared in anger and attacked the godly, destroying Yang altar. However, with their attacking power, how could they possibly break through? One-on-one. This time, Lin Feng could finally cultivate in peace. The only demon who was shrouded in the domain of the god-destroying altar of Yang looked around in shock, but he could not see even one of his companions. He felt as if he had been thrown from a large cage into a small cage. Bright lights flashed all around him, binding him at all times, causing his heart to ache. It was as if he was tightly bound. The word tragic was more than enough to describe it. Here, how much strength he wanted to display would depend on Lin Feng's mood. Come on, attack me. I'll give you a chance. Use your strongest strength. Kill me, and you can get out. Lin Feng looked at the Demon Clan expert in front of him with a serious expression. He completely let go of the restraints and no longer relied on the god-destroying congregate altar. He only treated this place as a battlefield. It would be easy for him to kill him, but this was not the result he wanted. He had put in so much effort to enter the myriad bone puppet. What he wanted was to truly sharpen himself, not to enjoy killing. Roar! The Demon Clan expert was instantly enraged. If he could still hold back his anger after being provoked like this, he would not be worthy of being a martial artist. How dare he let go of the restraints on him? He wanted this human expert in front of him to regret it. He was still defeated. Perhaps this Demon Clan expert's strength was indeed terrifying. He was at least one of the top 5 experts in the Douling world outside. However, when facing Lin Feng head-on, he could not escape death. Furthermore, this was the result of Lin Feng restraining himself and not fully displaying his strength. The difference was obvious. This was because Lin Feng was fully deserving of the title of the strongest expert in the Douling world. Huff, huff, sitting cross-legged in the god-destroying congregate altar, Lin Feng closed his eyes and recovered his strength. Cultivating by fighting would naturally consume his strength. In this myriad bone puppet that was surrounded by enemies, there were dangers everywhere. However, as long as he took out the god-destroying congregate altar, it would be a peaceful place. This was the ability of a supreme treasure. Even if it was just a basic domain ability, he could do whatever he wanted in the Douling world. Attacking could restrain the enemy, weaken their strength, and create a one-on-one battlefield. Defending could create an unbreakable region, one that was independent. Once he comprehended the advanced ability, Body Lock, Lin Feng's strength would be truly invincible. Soon, Lin Feng opened his eyes. A glint flashed in his eyes. In the battle just now, the Demon Clan expert's strength was not considered strong. He was unable to force his main body to the limit. Continue. Next, unwilling to be left out, Lin Feng began his life of cultivation. Time was tight. The kingdom of Maru's migration proceeded in an orderly manner. Very quickly, 6 days passed. Just as his main body was still fighting to the limit and his clone was still recovering his strength, the world-exterminating demon god appeared. He appeared once again and landed in the sight of the winged insect. With the sky martial continent as the center, Wing had already spread the winged insect in all directions, waiting for the appearance of the world-exterminating demon god. This was not unexpected. What was unexpected was that the world-exterminating demon god arrived faster than expected. Damn it! Lin Feng's eyes flickered. There was a glint in his eyes, and he was irritated. Because from the winged insect's sight, he could see that the world-exterminating demon god did not change his direction. It was a coincidence that he was indeed heading in the direction of the sky martial continent. Previously, he only had a 20 to 30% chance of success. Now, it had become 50 to 60%. The ratio was rather large. What should he do? What should he do? Lin Feng pursed his lips tightly. His mind was in a mess as he dodged the furious attacks of the sorcerer tribe cultivators in front of him and kept retreating. The situation where they were evenly matched suddenly became difficult for him alone. It had to be said that the strength of this sorcerer tribe expert was terrifying. He surpassed Sorcerer King Jiang. Regardless of whether it was his speed or agility, he was extremely valiant. He could perfectly use the gray energy. Although the kingdom of Maru has already left behind the elite seeds, but there's still more than 99% of the people who do not know about it. They are currently living in peace and contentment, living a carefree life. Can I really bear to abandon them? Lin Feng kept asking himself. He felt an immense pain. When he imagined that scene, his heart felt as though it was being torn into pieces. They treated him like a god. They kowtowed to him from 9 to 5, praying and thanking him as their guardian, as the holy king of the kingdom of Maru. How could he bear to abandon them and drag out an ignoble existence? Bang! Lin Feng's expression changed. The strength of the sorcerer tribe expert in front of him suddenly exploded. A terrifying feeling of restraint descended and wrapped around him. It was not an ability unique to the sorcerer tribe, but a controlling treasure that flashed with a dazzling indigo light. It was hidden very deeply. Boom! A powerful force suddenly erupted. The sharp claws were like two dazzling cold lights, attacking from the left and right. At the moment of life and death, Lin Feng's mind went blank. The original irritation and uneasiness were gone. Only the battle in front of him was left. Only this terrifying opponent was left. Insidious, vicious, just like the enemy who plotted against his family and hid in the dark. Scram! Lin Feng instantly widened his Pangu pupil and roared. The all-out attack and the control of the Yang altar almost instantly entered his mind. The comprehension that he had cultivated continuously for the past few days suddenly became clear at this moment. It was as if a gap had been opened in the dam. In an instant, it poured into his mind like a spring, and some blocked areas were integrated. It was as if the Panga method was circulating through his entire body. I understand now, Lin Feng said in his heart, his eyes gleaming. Suddenly, in front of him, the ferocious and twisted face was fixed on the spot. Its wings were spread open, and its claws were emitting a dense cold light. It was pouncing towards Lin Feng. It was only a short distance away, but it was difficult to take another step forward. Looking at Lin Feng, the twisted face revealed incomparable fear and shock. He was completely unable to move. He could only see the small and ordinary figure of the human expert and the blood-red flames descending like the sky. Boom! His consciousness was instantly destroyed. There was bound to be a gain. Not long after the world-destroying demon god appeared again, Lin Feng finally broke through the shackles and comprehended the advanced ability of the Yang altar, body lock. Although it was only a small step, it was a huge step forward in terms of strength. His original body's strength was below that of his clone. But now, his original body's strength was completely above that of his clone. This was the power of a supreme treasure. Of course, his original body might not be able to kill the clone with the Pango armor, but at least he could suppress the clone. If it was a one-on-one battle, the clone would not be able to fight back against the original body in the Yang altar and could only be beaten. But could his original body defeat the world-destroying demon god after the breakthrough? Lin Feng was not confident at all. His intuition told him that it was impossible. The god-destroying, converging Yang altar was not invincible. It was just like how a child holding a peerless sword might not be able to kill an adult. By the same logic, although the god-destroying, converging Yang altar was strong, it also had its limits. From the battle with the 10,000-bone scorpion, it could be seen that the stronger the martial artist who entered the god-destroying, converging Yang altar, the weaker the power of the domain. The stronger the controller, the more power the Yang altar could unleash. If the domain was like this, the advanced ability body lock must be the same. The stronger the enemy, the weaker the effect of body lock. It was even unknown whether it could lock the enemy. Even if it could lock the enemy, would his original body still have the ability to attack? How long could he lock the world-destroying demon god? Chapter 17:20. P.S. Look at the exclusive story behind Fire Smelting the Starry Sky, and listen to more of your suggestions for the novel. Pay attention to the Chinese website's official account. Add friends on WeChat. Add official account. Type Dread. And tell me secretly. Phew. Lin Feng exhaled deeply, his face solemn. The more he knew about the god-destroying Yang altar, the more he used it, and the more he knew the limits of its ability. The god-destroying Yang altar was not omnipotent. At least, in his hands, he could not exert its full power. It was too difficult to use the god-destroying Yang altar to deal with the world-destroying demon god, but was he really going to watch the kingdom of Maru be destroyed? He kept asking himself again and again, could he do it? He closed his eyes in pain, and the horror of the world-destroying demon god inexplicably appeared in his mind. He saw the infuriating and tragic scene of the kingdom of Maru flowing with blood, and innocent people becoming the food of the world-destroying demon god. That scene was like a demon in his heart. Lin Feng's face was pale. Reason told him that leaving was the right decision. But many times, many things could not be controlled by reason, because this was the value of human beings, or the weakness. Because human beings had 7 emotions and 6 desires. I can't do it. Lin Feng opened his eyes and muttered to himself. However, he suddenly revealed a bitter smile, as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. His confused eyes flickered with a bright luster as he clenched his trembling hands tightly, bringing with him a sense of strength and persistence. He had to face himself honestly and bravely. He couldn't abandon the entire kingdom of Maru and drag out an ignoble existence. Since he couldn't do it, the rest was simple. Face him bravely. In fact, there was nothing to be afraid of. He had fought with the world, destroying demon god again and again. Although there was a great disparity in strength, wasn't he still alive? Although the current situation was bad, his original body had comprehended the advanced ability of the god-destroying Yang altar body lock. At least he had the strength to fight. The key was, how could he exert his strength to the extreme and reduce the strength of the world-destroying demon god to the extreme? Lin Feng nodded slowly, his eyes shining. He had never been a person who was afraid of death or a person who was afraid of challenges. On the contrary, this seemingly hopeless challenge made his blood boil. Only when there was danger would there be an opportunity. Perhaps it seemed that fighting with the world-destroying demon god was a very foolish thing to do. But if he could really kill him, wouldn't that be wonderful? This ticking time bomb would be dismantled forever. Lure him to the Rashomon purgatory. Lin Feng suddenly had a feeling of anticipation and confidence. Although the world exterminator demon god was strong, the terror of Rashomon purgatory was also extraordinary. There might be a super terrifying ancient demon sleeping in there, one that was even stronger than the world exterminator demon god. If we awaken that terrifying existence and kill the world destroying demon god, what's the point? Lin Feng shook his head. If they killed one small one and another big one came, wouldn't the kingdom of Maru be destroyed? Furthermore, even though the world annihilator demon gods were extremely fearsome, at the very least, they had weaknesses that could be exploited. However, if they really did lure out the Luosheng purgatory, then the entire Do spirit world would be destroyed. If the terrifying existence in Rosheng purgatory was weaker than the world-destroying demon god, then it would be a waste of effort to lure the world-destroying demon god. Furthermore, although the world-destroying demon god was stupid, he wasn't stupid. Even the most ordinary wild beasts knew how to seek fortune and avoid calamity. They would rarely fight wild beasts that were stronger than themselves. Would the world-destroying demon god be so foolish as to go to the mountain knowing that there was a tiger there? At the very least, he already had a newborn consciousness. If this plan doesn't work, then I'll just avoid the kingdom of Maru and fight him before he enters. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In this way, even if his main body failed and was killed, there is a certain possibility that he could lure the world-destroying demon god away from his original path and save the kingdom of Maru in a roundabout way. However, if he were to fight head-on, his chances of winning were extremely slim. Oh, Lin Feng frowned. My main body's strength has increased by a lot. Is it possible to think of a way to defeat the world-destroying demon god? There must be a way. There must be, Lin Feng muttered to himself and fell into deep thought. Who would want to have dysentery if they had hair? If he had a choice, he didn't want to sacrifice his main body or doppelganger. Furthermore, the world-destroying demon god wasn't without weaknesses. The fact that he could weaken his strength time and time again was the best proof. His most fatal weakness was the existence of his spirit. Because of the great sage, his spirit had been beaten back to its original form and had to grow slowly again. This made it difficult for the world-destroying demon god to think clearly and rely more on his instincts to act. Weakness. Yes, weakness. I should aim for his weakness. Lin Feng's heart was moved, and he nodded. The weakness of the world-destroying demon god wasn't only his consciousness. His thinking was simple, and like most magical beasts, he had a weakness, demonic aura. Demonic aura is the foundation of the world-destroying demon god. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. There are two modes. Either the demonic aura forms the spirit, or the spirit forms the demonic aura. The world-destroying demon god is the former. As long as I can destroy his demonic aura, the world-destroying demon god will definitely die. Lin Feng was deep in thought, and his expression turned serious. When his doppelganger destroyed the spinning top restriction, he had fought against the world-destroying demon god. What was the result? He had injured his demonic aura. Although the injury wasn't serious, it at least proved that he had the ability to injure his demonic aura. And this was the result of fighting with the world-destroying demon god head-on. Previously, the great sage attacked him when he was absorbing the aura of death and also injured him. The great sage's attack power is far inferior to mine. This is enough to prove that his demonic aura can be severely injured or even destroyed. Lin Feng's eyes lit up and his thoughts surged. He clearly knew the weakness of the world-destroying demon god. There were two possibilities for his demonic aura to be exposed. One was when he was attacking from a distance, and the other was when he was absorbing the aura of death. But when he was attacking from a distance, due to the terrifying attack power, it was easy to injure his demonic aura, but difficult to destroy it. Only the second possibility could seriously injure his demonic aura and destroy the world-destroying demon god. Absorb the aura of death. Lin Feng moved lightly. If he could attack the world-destroying demon god when he was absorbing the aura of death, his doppelganger's demonic aura could be severely injured. If he used his full strength, it was not impossible to destroy his demonic aura. especially with the advanced ability of the god, destroying, gathering, alter, body lock. He only needed an instant, and he would have a chance to win. Yes, that's it. Aura of death. Gray energy, the two have a great similarity. Seems like I can make use of it. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In other places in the Douling world, he might not be able to find the aura of death, but he had a lot of it. And that was the aura of death stored in the shield of reality. What would happen if he released a little of it and let the world-destroying demon god absorb it? Thinking of this, Lin Feng's chest heaved up and down and his heartbeat quickened. An opportunity seemed to have appeared in front of him. This is a good event where a pie falls from the sky. Cool phones are waiting for you. Click on the Chinese website's official account, add a friend on WeChat, add a public account, type Kdred, and participate immediately. There's a prize for everyone. Follow Kdred's official account on WeChat now. Chapter 17:21. The world-exterminating demon god had appeared. It was getting closer and closer to the Sky Martial Continent and the Kingdom of Meru. However, other than Lin Feng, Lin Yun, and a few others, no one knew that a huge calamity was about to descend. Due to the existence of Wing, Lin Feng was very clear about the world-exterminating demon god's every move. Only when the world-exterminating demon god was close to the Kingdom of Meru and confirmed that there were no mistakes, did Lin Feng make the final decision. He directly stuffed all his relatives, his younger brother Lin Yun, his mother Lin Wanqing, his wives and children, into the Netherworld ship. Indeed, it was stuffed and not arranged for them to enter. Lin Feng did not want them to worry or make him hesitate. Everything could wait until the battle with the world-exterminating demon god was over. Right now, he had to focus all his energy and focus on dealing with the world-exterminating demon god. For the Kingdom of Meru, for the people who loved and respected him, Lin Feng could not afford to lose this battle. Victory and defeat were only separated by a fine line. Swish! Lin Feng, who was sitting cross-legged at the edge of the Sky Martial Continent, opened his eyes. Dense chi of heaven and earth surrounded Lin Feng's body as he stood up. His eyes shone with a determined light. After this period of recuperation, his clone had almost recovered 90% of his peak combat strength. It was already quite good, and this was also due to the clone's strong physique. In this crucial battle, an extra bit of strength was an extra bit of strength. It's finally here, Lin Feng muttered to himself as he shared the vision of the winged bug. He could clearly see the appearance of the world-exterminating demon god. It was very close to the Kingdom of Meru. He still had an unrealistic hope in his heart. He hoped that the world-exterminating demon god would take a detour around the Kingdom of Meru. However, reality proved that he could not avoid it. He could not avoid it. He had to face the most terrifying existence in the Douling world. World-exterminating demon god. And this time, it would be the most direct confrontation. Roar! A domineering roar resounded throughout the Sky Martial Continent. The enormous body of the world-destroying demonic god was filled with an oppressive aura. The dense aura of death symbolized destruction and death. The pair of pitch-black eyes were filled with incomparable ruthlessness. He had already sensed the aura of life on the island in front of him, and he only needed to slaughter these life forms to have a full meal. He was very happy. Now, the world-destroying demon god was no longer as confused as he was in the graveyard. He had given up on himself and gained pleasure from killing, the meaning of his life, and food. To the simple wisdom of the world-destroying demon god, this was the most direct and fundamental reaction. Kill. He only needed to keep killing. His huge body streaked across like a stream of light. The speed of the world-destroying demon god almost tore the space apart, but he still maintained his extreme speed. Even though he could easily resist the suction of the space turbulence with his current strength, there was no need for that. The small island in front of him was just a place for him to move around. There was nothing worthy of him unleashing his full strength. Soon, he would slaughter all the life forms on the small island, just like what he had done the past few days. There was no difference. He slowly entered the border of the sky martial continent. Although the world-destroying demon god's eyes were filled with ruthlessness, he was very calm. Suddenly, the world-destroying demon god stopped abruptly and opened his eyes wide. Suck! The world-destroying demon god forcefully inhaled. He looked around with a slightly shocked expression and instantly locked onto the front left. He opened his bloody mouth and let out an excited roar. A pair of eyes shone brightly. The world-destroying demon god spread out his huge wings and suddenly changed his route. He flew to the front left and let out a joyful roar from time to time. He smelled the aura of death. He is indeed here. Lin Feng smiled. The intelligence of the world-destroying demon god was indeed as simple as he had imagined. He did not know how to differentiate if there was anything strange. In fact, with his strength, he was not afraid of any schemes. The world-destroying demon god was naturally infatuated with the aura of death. That was because it was the most fundamental existence that formed his body, the demonic aura. As long as he set up a little aura of death at the border of the sky martial continent, he would be able to attract the world-destroying demon god. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. He was very satisfied with the success of the first step, because that was the most crucial step. He had previously thought of using the aura of death to lure the world-destroying demon god out of the sky martial continent and change his route. But that was meaningless, because once the world-destroying demon god absorbed all the aura of death and was unable to find the source, he would be even more furious and anxious. With his temperament, he would definitely sweep through all the nearby regions. At that time, the sky martial continent would also not be able to escape from the demon's claws. Since that was the case, he might as well lure him in and finish it in one go. Swish! Swish! Images kept appearing in front of him. On the path of setting up the aura of death, Lin Feng had set up many winged bugs. Basically, there were winged bugs in every corner of the kingdom of Maru. They were like a huge net that was cast above the kingdom of Maru. Soon, it is getting closer. Soon, I will be able to reel in the net. Lin Feng waited patiently. The world-destroying demon god was stepping into the trap that he had carefully set up for him. Myriad bone skeleton. Roar! The wild and unrestrained beast roar brought with it a trace of arrogance and excitement. This uninhabited region welcomed a heavyweight guest who was recklessly absorbing the gray energy. The world-destroying demon god's eyes shone brightly. He entered the area and absorbed the gray energy without restraint. He even closed his eyes in satisfaction. Here, there was his favorite food. Regardless of appearance or aura, the gray energy was extremely similar to the aura of death. Of course, after absorbing it into one's body, one would naturally feel different. But what if the aura of death was mixed with the gray energy? Not to mention the world-destroying demon god. Even a smart martial artist might not be able to tell the difference. It was like the difference between fine copper ore and coarse copper ore. To the world-destroying demon god, the gray energy was actually a coarse copper ore that was filled with impurities. But the world-destroying demon god did not care. He had no choice. Even if it was a coarse copper ore, it was at least a copper ore. As long as there was enough of it, wouldn't it be much better than the fine copper ore that he cannot absorb? Anyway, to the world-destroying demon god, absorbing it was like breathing. He opened and closed and directly swallowed it all into his stomach. It entered his demonic aura and turned into pure energy to supply his body. It was simple. He approached step by step. Soon, the world-destroying demon god stepped into the real range of the myriad bone skeleton. The illusion had no effect on him at all. This was because the gray energy that caused the illusion had been completely devoured by the world-destroying demon god. There was not the slightest bit left. Swaying, the world-destroying demon god crossed the stone tablet area and then came to the entrance of the myriad bone skeleton. His eyes shone brightly. He felt an extremely dense aura of death. It was much denser than before. There was a small crack in the ripple-like pattern in front of him, and the aura of death was constantly seeping out. The world-destroying demon god's eyes were wide open, and his breathing became much more rapid. But there was not much time for him to react. The small crack was healing bit by bit, and the violent aura in the world-destroying demon god's eyes suddenly reappeared. How could he tolerate it? Seeing that the food was close at hand, but he could not eat it, how angry was he? Roar! With a furious attack, the world-destroying demon god directly waved his claws to break the strange pattern in front of him. But it was like a ripple that kept trembling, and he did not succeed. Immediately, the world-destroying demon god, who was already impatient, felt anxious and angry. In an instant, he waved his claws and broke the strange pattern. How cautious! Lin Feng's eyes flashed. At the entrance was the first trap that he had set. The small crack was broken by him in order to lure the world-destroying demon god into the myriad bone skeleton. Once he used a powerful demonic aura attack, he would definitely be able to break through the suppression and defense of the 100 Falls. But at that time, the demonic aura would appear, and his god-destroying Yang altar would wait for that moment to directly lock the demonic aura into it and launch an attack. But since the last time his devil essence was damaged, the world-destroying demon god had become much more careful. He no longer launched devil essence attacks. Instead, he waved his terrifying claws that radiated cold light in all directions and his fleshy wings that were like two large sabers, breaking 100 Falls' defense bit by bit. Once bitten, twice shy, Lin Feng thought to himself. Although the world-destroying demon god had just gained intelligence, he was not stupid. He knew what was dangerous to him and what he should not do or try to do as little as possible. He was very clear about how strong the defense of the 100 Falls was. With the strength of the world-destroying demon god, even if he only used his physical strength, he believed that he would be able to break through it very quickly. Indeed, a crack appeared directly. Seeing the aura of death seeping out from the crack, the world-destroying demon god's fighting spirit soared, and he roared madly. His claws danced wildly, and the crack instantly widened. Feeling more and more aura of death appearing, the world-destroying demon god was unable to contain his excitement. He had not seen so much food for a long time. Bang! Sizzle! The crack was gradually torn open and expanded. From the extreme pulling of small crack, it was enough to show how terrifying the strength of the world-destroying demon god was. Lin Feng's strongest attack could only break open a small hole. But the world-destroying demon god could forcefully destroy the defense with just his physical strength. Roar! Accompanied by an overjoyed roar, the world-destroying demon god lowered his body and entered the 10,000 bones puppet. Absorbing the aura of death outside was naturally not as satisfying as absorbing it inside. Moreover, the world-destroying demon god believed that this was still not the source. He had to find the source of the aura of death so that he could absorb more and feel more refreshed. A man who was never content was like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. It was the same for the world-destroying demon god. The more aura of death there was, the better it was for him. Absorbing to the limit, the world-destroying demon god closed his eyes and enjoyed it. The demonic aura on his forehead became clearer and clearer. It pulsed like a beating heart. He absorbed with peace of mind because he did not feel any threat or even the existence of life in this area. He was naturally happy and contented. From time to time, he would let out a few sounds of enjoyment. He had not eaten to his heart's content for a long time. Suddenly, he did not know that other than him, there was another person in this area, a hunter who had been lying in ambush for a long time. Chapter 1722. P.S. Look at the exclusive story behind Fire, Smelting the Starry Sky, and listen to your suggestions for the novel. Pay attention to the Chinese website's official account. Add friends on WeChat. Add official account type dread, and tell me secretly. God-destroying congregate altar. Lin Feng was hiding in the God-destroying congregate altar. The domain of this super treasure could not only be used against the enemy, but also against oneself, forming a special protection. Lin Feng shrunk the God-destroying congregate altar completely. The area was filled with gray energy, and one could not see far away, let alone the tiny God-destroying congregate altar. Lin Feng had been lying in ambush. He was like a hunter, waiting patiently for an opportunity. The second trap. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he pursed his lips tightly. Although the first trap had failed, he still had a second trap, which was the ability that the gray energy carried. Warriors with weak willpower would be easily affected by the gray energy and become violent, losing their sense of self. Although the spirit of the world-destroying demon god was very strong, it did not mean that his willpower was strong. They were two completely different existences. The more gray energy you absorb, the easier it is to be affected, Lin Feng thought to himself. Although the world-destroying demon god was like a killing machine and did not have a strong consciousness, at least he still had some intelligence. If he was affected by the gray energy and completely lost his consciousness, it would be much easier for him to deal with him, regardless of how strong he was. Back in the graveyard, the world-destroying demonic god had given up on himself and was completely lost. However, as Lingji recovered, the world-destroying demonic god regained his sense of self and became violent and intelligent. He quickly left the graveyard and found a new way out. There seemed to be only a small difference between having a newborn consciousness and acting on instinct, but it was actually very different. However, would he succeed? Lin Feng did not know. He just waited patiently. In his opinion, it was a 50-50 chance. A little time passed slowly, and the aura of the world exterminator demon god grew stronger. With the absorption of the deathly aura, even his injuries seemed to have recovered significantly. However, Lin Feng didn't care because it didn't make much of a difference. The world-destroying demon god was an existence that defied the natural order, and he had no chance of winning in a head-on battle with him. Hence, it didn't matter whether his injuries had recovered or not. More importantly, would he step into the second trap? It's changed. He really has changed. There's an additional layer of gray light in his eyes, and he's less violent. The corners of Lin Feng's mouth curled up slightly as he rejoiced inwardly. Even though the first trap failed, the second trap seemed to have succeeded. The absorption of the gray energy didn't affect the world annihilation demonic god at all. He naturally wouldn't know that the impurities he absorbed had huge side effects. By the time he found out, it would probably be too late. The world-destroying demon god relaxed. Comfort could make people relax, and it was the same for the world annihilation demonic god. Moreover, his intelligence became thinner as he absorbed more gray energy. His willpower wasn't strong enough to begin with. The gray light in his eyes became more and more intense, and even the demonic aura on his forehead became faintly discernible from before. His defenses were being removed layer by layer like clothes. A little more. Lin Feng clenched his fists tightly and felt his palms sweating. The success of the second trap made him more confident, and the door of opportunity seemed to be slowly opening for him. He stared at the forehead of the world annihilation demonic god and saw the demonic aura appearing bit by bit. The defense of the world annihilation demonic god was slowly weakening. The more demonic aura appeared, the faster the speed at which the world annihilation demonic god absorbed the deathly aura. However, the danger level of the demonic aura also increased, especially when it completely appeared on the forehead. It was a relatively dangerous thing. As the demonic aura was easy to release but hard to withdraw, it was impossible to withdraw it quickly. There would at least be a delay, and this delay was the opportunity that he had been chasing after. The first trap failed, but the second trap, it finally succeeded. Ha! The demonic aura finally appeared. Lin Feng's eyes were shining, and his heart was beating extremely fast at this moment. Although this was already an opportunity, he still forced himself to hold it back because it was still not the best opportunity. The more demonic aura appeared, the greater the chance of severely injuring or even killing the world annihilation demonic god. Time passed by minute. Under the influence of the gray energy, the world annihilation demonic god became more and more relaxed, and the demonic aura on his forehead gradually appeared by percentage. 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%, 60%, swoosh. Suddenly, the world annihilation demonic god seemed to have suddenly woken up. The gray light in his eyes disappeared, and his expression was somewhat stunned. The world annihilation demonic god seemed to be in a daze, as if he had woken up from a daydream, and his expression changed slightly, because he had already felt that the appearance of the demonic aura was a little excessive. Withdraw. It was just a thought. However, it was too late. Lin Feng had been monitoring the movements of the world annihilation demonic god, including the changes in his eyes. How could he let go of such an opportunity? Although the appearance of the demonic aura had not reached 100%, and it was not the best opportunity, he could not wait any longer. If he waited any longer, he was afraid that even this little advantage would disappear. Fight! God annihilation gathering altar. Lin Feng roared fiercely, and the sudden appearance of the altar made the world annihilation demonic god's eyes light up. Intense anger and violence flashed in his eyes, but there was also a trace of panic. In an instant, the god annihilation gathering altar, which was originally as small as a stone, suddenly expanded and directly enveloped the world annihilation demonic god. Roar! With an angry roar, the world annihilation demonic god withdrew the demonic aura at the fastest speed, and even looked for Lin Feng's traces, but it was still too late. His reaction speed was not faster than Lin Feng's attack. Body lock. Lin Feng gritted his teeth and roared. His astral source power was output to the limit, and his hands were like shackles, directly binding the world annihilation demonic god. This was not the first time he had used it, but it was the first time he had used it against such a terrifying and powerful world annihilation demonic god. Could succeed? Hiss! Hiss! Lin Feng's body trembled violently, and his expression changed dramatically. That was a huge force to break free. He could not use his original body's attack at all, because just using the body lock ability had already exhausted all of his original body strength. It was like using a thick rope to bind the Pang Ram behemoth, but the behemoth strength was too great. Plans could not keep up with changes. However, Lin Feng had already thought of countless possibilities, so how could he not have a backup plan? Swoosh! A figure suddenly appeared, like a divine soldier descending from the sky. The doppelganger was holding an illusory spear, and the power of heaven and earth condensed on his body. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Although the doppelganger's strength had only recovered to 90% of its peak, it did not mean that the doppelganger's strength was weaker than before. Because of the existence of the 7-inch fist, during the recovery period, the doppelganger was not only purely recovering, but also consolidating the second style of the 7-inch fist that he had previously comprehended. That day, the second style of the 7-inch fist could be injured by the world annihilation demonic god's light. Now, not only had he completely mastered it, but he could also transform it into an extremely pure 7-inch spear. The power of the fist and the spear was much weaker to Lin Feng. Die! His body turned into a stream of light, and Lin Feng's eyes were filled with determination. His mind was unprecedentedly focused, and the two white spots of light on his left and right hand shone brightly. In an instant, the explosion formed a terrifying airflow of heaven and earth. The Pangu technique was operated to the limit, and the most powerful destructive force was condensed on the illusory spear. This spear was unprecedentedly powerful. Under the pressure of the desperate situation, the 7-inch spear was perfectly executed, and it far exceeded the strength of his original body. It went straight for the world annihilation demonic god that was restricted by the body lock for a moment, and more than half of the demonic aura appeared on his forehead. Roar! Hysterical madness. The world annihilation demonic god immediately understood what Lin Feng wanted to do. His body was strongly restrained, and facing the world annihilation demonic god's frantic struggle, Lin Feng's original body instantly retreated while vomiting blood. He broke free. He only restricted the world annihilation demonic god for a moment. The god annihilating congregate altar was indeed very powerful, and the body lock ability allowed Lin Feng to jump a few levels and trap the world annihilation demonic god for a moment. However, the difference in strength was like a chasm, and Lin Feng could not stop the world annihilation demonic god from breaking free. However, step by step, the entire process was seamless. Although the world annihilation demonic god broke free, the Avatar's attack had already arrived. The world annihilation demonic god unleashed its strongest deathly aura to defend in front of the demonic aura, but could not block the Avatar that descended like a meteor and the spear that pierced through the sky. Gee, the entire space seemed to have been pierced through. There was silence, and only that one spear and that resplendent shadow were left. In the midst of the condensation of the deathly aura, there was a shocking explosion at the moment the spear pierced through the destruction. The world annihilation demonic god's shrill roar shook the world. Hum! It was like the roar of thunder. Puff! Lin Feng fell backward like a kite with a broken string. At the moment when the demonic aura was attacked, a shocking amount of deathly aura surged into the Avatar's body. Although the Avatar's spear had indeed pierced through the demonic aura of the world annihilation demonic god, at the same time, the shocking amount of deathly aura also caused the Avatar to be severely injured. The Avatar was not dead, but the shocking amount of deathly aura was crazily destroying the Avatar. Can it survive? Lin Feng did not know, and he did not care at all. The eyes of the main body were blood red. After the world annihilation demonic god broke free, the backlash from the god annihilating congregate altar's power was also not light. Lin Feng looked straight ahead, his heart in turmoil. His intuition told him that if the Avatar's earth-shattering spear was focused on the demonic aura, it would definitely be able to kill the world annihilation demonic god. However, the effect of the body lock was weaker than expected. To be precise, the world annihilation demonic god strength was more terrifying than expected. If the Avatar could last for a moment longer, the world annihilation demonic god would not be able to defend himself, and the result would be certain. However, the world annihilation demonic god still managed to set up a defense. Although it was only a small amount to him, it was enough to severely injure the Avatar and weaken the Avatar's strongest spear. Can I win? Lin Feng's body trembled. He stood up shakily, but he did not have the slightest confidence. Suddenly, roar! A hoarse and weak roar sounded. It was filled with sorrow and anger, mixed with a trace of fear. The world annihilation demonic god was like a severely injured ferocious beast. At this moment it was dying. Lin Feng could even see that the huge body that was trembling nonstop had completely shrunk. Black blood kept flowing out, and it was extremely terrifying. However, he did not die. In an instant, Lin Feng's face turned pale. What a good event where a pie falls from the sky. Cool phones are waiting for you. Click on the Chinese website's official account, add a friend on WeChat, add a public account, enter Dread, and participate immediately. There will be a prize for everyone. Follow Dread's official account on WeChat now. Chapter 1723. P.S. Look at the exclusive story behind Fire, Smelting the Starry Sky, and listen to more of your suggestions for the novel. Pay attention to the Chinese website's official account, add friends on WeChat, add official account, type Dread, and tell me secretly. He used all his strength. He had set up layers of traps and killed the world-destroying demon god just for this final blow. However, his clone was on the verge of death, and his main body was seriously injured. But this was the result. The world-destroying demon god's roar was extremely weak and dispirited, just like when he was in the cemetery. He was seriously injured again, and even much more seriously than before. But what was the use? He was still alive. As long as he was alive, there were endless possibilities. Even if the world-destroying demon god was seriously injured and weak, he was still much stronger than him. His main body was now powerless to fight back. His doppelganger, on the other hand, already had 1 foot in the gates of hell. Did he fail? No. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as he gritted his teeth. Not yet. Even if there was less than 1 in 10,000 chance, he had to fight to the end. He would die either way, so he might as well use all his strength to fight to the end. In such a situation, there was no possibility of retreat. Vermilion bird attack. 95% of my soul power. Lin Feng's Pangu shone and completely erupted. This was his main body's final and strongest attack. Either you die, or I die. In his mind, soul power surged out like a tide and completely gathered, forming a huge, fiery red sparrow. It was like an illusion and transparent, as if it didn't belong to the real power at all, but it was extremely terrifying. It was invisible, but extremely terrifying power. The fiery red sparrow's eyes flashed with an extremely intense light, condensing almost all of Lin Feng's soul power. The previous vermilion bird attack could only unleash 50% of his soul power at most, but the power of Pangu, I could unleash the most perfect and powerful soul power. 95%. The remaining 5% was necessary to maintain his main body. Boom! Light shot out in all directions, and the rich power was accompanied by a murderous aura. The huge fiery red sparrow let out a high-pitched cry, and the decisive power was full of tenacity and persistence. Through the layers of mist, Lin Feng seemed to see the horrified eyes of the world-destroying demon god. His soul instantly entered, and there was a violent roar. Pung! Everything was over. 10,000 Bones Valley tranquility. The 4 perilous lands that Lin Feng had cleared were now empty and peaceful. Other than a huge, numb beast standing opposite a human expert and a human cultivator lying on the ground, the only thing that could be seen was the ethereal gray energy that was mixed with the aura of death that permeated the air. It was very quiet. It was so quiet that one could even hear a pin drop. Who won? There was no reaction at all, be it Lin Feng or the world-destroying demon god. Both of them seemed to have lost their consciousness. Time slowly passed. This moment seemed to last for an eternity. Logically speaking, regardless of whether Lin Feng's soul attack succeeded or failed, the main body should have at least reacted. But right now, it was as if it had been sealed in ice. There was no movement at all. What happened? Inside the world-destroying demon god's body. He won. He died just like that. Lin Feng himself was a little confused. He did not have any confidence in his final attack. It was a desperate move. No matter how low the spiritual intelligence of the world-destroying demon god was, it was still an existence that was several levels higher than him. He did not even have a 1 in 10,000 chance of winning in a battle of souls. Otherwise, he would have launched his soul attack long ago. Why would he have waited until now? However, his attack was like a moth darting into the flame. It killed the world-destroying demon god's spirit easily and smoothly. It felt as easy as piercing a piece of tofu with his spear. It was not like stabbing an iron plate. This contrast made Lin Feng unable to react. The world-destroying demon god's spirit was gone. To be precise, it was devoured. It took him a lot of time to completely devour this huge piece of cheese. Previously, he was still envious of the great sage. But now, he could feel the changes in his soul. He also had the strongest talent of the world-destroying demon god connection. As long as he was willing, he could have unlimited clones and duplicates. As long as he had enough time and energy, he would be immortal. It was a blessing in disguise. I understand now. I see. After regaining his senses, Lin Feng's thoughts and emotions returned to normal. Soon, he figured it out. He had completely forgotten that at the moment before he launched the vermilion bird attack, his clone's strongest move had seriously injured the world-destroying demon god's demonic yuan. It had greatly damaged his vitality. His body had shrunk, and he was in a weakened state. It was evident that he had used up a lot of energy. For a martial artist, physical injuries would not affect the soul. However, it was different for the world-destroying demon god. His demonic yuan and spirit were connected. His spirit was even derived from the demonic yuan. The damage to the demonic yuan was a destructive blow to the spirit of the world-destroying demon god. Moreover, his spirit was only in a newborn state. Later, it was affected by the gray energy and became weaker and weaker. Therefore, the final spirit was so weak. It was totally imaginable. The severely injured spirit of the world-destroying demon god was almost equivalent to a weak starry sky expert. As for my soul attack, if I use Pangu Eyes and unleash 95% of my soul power, I can almost kill an ordinary starry sky expert. Therefore, it was not difficult to kill the spirit of the world-destroying demon god. After figuring it out, Lin Feng no longer had any doubts. He fixed his eyes on the only core that still existed in the body of the world-destroying demon god, demonic yuan. The lonely and heavily injured demonic yuan was like a shriveled ball. It would shatter with just a pinch. If he destroyed it, the world-destroying demon god would be completely destroyed. However, it would undoubtedly be a waste of natural resources. Split a part of my soul and control him. Lin Feng's mind moved. He quickly deduced many things from one example. For an ordinary martial artist, this was undoubtedly suicide or giving up their original body. However, it was different for him. His talent was connection. His soul could be split limitlessly. It would slowly recover and reach perfection. Although it would take a lot of time, a heaven-defying existence like the world-destroying demon god could not even bear to waste 3,000 demon gods. How could he bear to destroy him? It was worth it to split his soul. In the future, his main body would be able to control the world-destroying demon god. His strength would be unimaginable. However, this is still far away. This time, his demonic yuan was severely injured. He will only be able to derive a spirit after he has recovered. As for the source of the aura of death, I have already destroyed it. It's up to me. Anyway, my mission in the Douling world is almost complete. When the human race is stable, I can cultivate in seclusion and become a starry sky expert as soon as possible. Lin Feng was tempted. He actually yearned for the vast and boundless starry sky world. When the time came, his main body would stay in the Douling world to accompany his family. His two powerful clones will be able to explore the starry sky world. As long as his main body did not die, he would be able to split into countless clones. His life-saving ability was top-notch. With a thought, Lin Feng quickly split a part of his soul into his demonic yuan. Assimilation. The world-destroying demon god was very special. He did not have a soul. His spirit and demonic yuan were one, just like a machine. Therefore, as long as he assimilated with his demonic yuan, it would be equivalent to controlling this machine. At that time, the derivation of his spirit would also be under his control. The process was not difficult. In fact, it was very easy. Because the demonic yuan of the world-destroying demon god was injured again and again, the devouring of his spirit was undoubtedly worse for the demonic yuan. Therefore, it was very easy to control the demonic yuan. In an instant, the feeling was very different. The world-destroying demon god's astonishingly powerful body appeared. "It's really strong," Lin Feng exclaimed. Although it was still in a weak state, the world-destroying demon god's body was much stronger than his clones. The information in the demonic chi poured into Lin Feng's mind like a tide. Lin Feng quickly received all of this, and his heart was filled with indescribable shock. Everything, including his cultivation, his super strong abilities and talents, was beyond his imagination. Compared to the world-destroying demon god, his main body and clones were as small as ants. This is the real, top-notch talent of the starry sky level. Lin Feng could not help but sigh. He was like a frog at the bottom of a well. Although his main body and clones had many fortuitous encounters and had unparalleled talents in the Doling world, looking at the starry sky world, there were countless people like him. After all, the talents of humans were really nothing in the starry sky world. According to Duo, people like him were as numerous as the hairs on a cow. In the starry sky world, he was actually very mediocre. However, with a super powerful clone like the world-destroying demon god, he seemed to have taken a big step forward in an instant and looked down on others. The world-destroying demon god is probably a rare existence in the starry sky level, Lin Feng exclaimed. He had paid a huge price in this battle. Although the spoils of war were quite generous, the price he had to pay was also terrible. His main body was severely injured and his soul was also separated. When he returned to his body, he felt as if he had been completely drained of water and could not move at all. The clones suffered the most. The tyrannical aura of death was constantly devouring the clones' cells. The clones' differentiation and recovery were not enough to fight against the enormous aura of death. In fact, if not for the clone's strong physique, he would have died long ago. He was still hanging on by a breath. And this breath was very important to the clone. As long as he did not die, there were endless possibilities. Whoosh, the world-destroying demon god, who was originally standing there in a daze, inhaled instantly. His eyes flashed with radiance. In an instant, the surrounding gray energy mixed with the aura of death was absorbed, including the aura of death that was constantly destroying the clone's body. CSI. The aura of death was being absorbed bit by bit. The clone seemed to be trembling slightly, as if something was being extracted from his body. However, it was a gratifying scene. The speed of recovery was finally equal to the speed of destruction. As the world-destroying demon god continued to absorb, the aura of death became less and less. The clone had successfully stepped out of the gates of hell. It was a close call. In fact, the main body could also absorb the aura of death with the shield of truth. However, the speed of absorption was not as fast as the world-destroying demon god. Phew! Lin Feng exhaled deeply. The main body stood up tiredly. The injuries on his body were not serious. After all, he was only suffering from the backlash of the world-destroying demon god breaking free. The main injury was the damage to his soul. A portion of 95% of his soul power was consumed during the attack, and a portion was consumed by the aura of death in the world-destroying demon god's body. In addition to the division, it could be said that the main body soul was now less than 10%. It would also take a long time for him to recover. However, this outcome is great. Lin Feng revealed a weak smile. What a good event for a free lunch. Cool phone's waiting for you. Click on the Chinese website's official account, add a friend on WeChat, add a public account, type Dread, and participate immediately. There will be a prize for everyone. Follow the official account of Dread on WeChat now. Chapter 1724. P.S. Read the exclusive story behind Starry Sky Fiery and listen to your suggestions for the novel. Pay attention to the Chinese website's official account, add friends on WeChat, add official account, type Dread, and tell me secretly. He won. He won without any mishap. Although Lin Feng was scolded by his wives and mothers, he knew how they felt. They felt worse than him on the Netherworld ship. Just like in war, most of the time, the ones who suffered the most were not the warriors who fought on the front line, but the family members who were on tenterhooks at the back. The disaster passed just like that. Lin Yun quickly arranged for the elites to return. However, those elites were all confused and did not know what had happened. Just like the ordinary people in the kingdom of Meru who were still living peacefully, they did not even know that such a disaster had happened. They almost could not see the blue clouds in the sky again. But sometimes, not knowing might be more blissful than knowing. Lin Feng recuperated peacefully. The one who was in the worst condition was undoubtedly his clone. Although he was saved, he was tortured by the death aura. His internal organs were all destroyed and 90% of his strength was gone. If not for the Panga technique that gave him a strong physique, his clone would have died long ago. But even so, he had to recuperate for a while. As for his main body and the world-destroying demon god's clone, it was better. His main body mainly needed to recover his soul, while the world-destroying demon god's recovery speed was the fastest because there was still a lot of death aura in the Shield of Truth. But it was not possible to recover the demonic aura in the Douling world. It could be said that the battle with the world-destroying demon god had reduced Lin Feng's strength by more than 90%. It was a tragic victory, but a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Even if Lin Feng only had 5% of his strength in the entire Douling world, who could be his match? Just like the weakened world-destroying demon god, it was still a giant in front of Lin Feng. And now, Lin Feng was still the man who stood at the top of the Douling world. What a wizard race. Looting a burning house. Do you think we humans have no one? Just as well. I might as well solve all the problems in one go. Lin Feng's face was slightly pale. His eyes were dim, but they flashed with strong determination and confidence. This time, all the problems would be solved. Sorcerer Realm. This was the most elite region in the entire Douling world. It had the densest spiritual energy and the most unique treasure land. Not only was it the lair of the shamans, but it also gathered the strongest battle prowess of the heavenly spirit race. The three imperial cities had gathered 8,000 elite experts from neutral races. Their strength was not inferior to that of the shamans and demons at all. A large number of neutral race experts had gathered here. The Emperor of the Underworld, Skeleton, and his second-in-command, Huang Quan, came from the Netherworld. The Lulon Emperor of the Lulon Kingdom and his subordinates, the Lulon Lords of the Lulon Kingdom, and even the experts from the imperial capital in the depths of the sea had arrived. Although the imperial capital was also part of the heavenly spirit realm, it had always been at odds with the three imperial cities. However, now, he had completely abandoned his prejudices. In the face of a common enemy, the heavenly spirit realm was quite united. This was because no matter how they fought among themselves, it was still internal strife. They should be united against a common enemy, just like the demons. Where is Yun Chong? The emperor of the imperial capital. Chengba's eyes were bright and slightly unhappy. I don't know. Skeleton wore a crown and a set of black armor. He ignored Chengba. Ignorant. Chengba's tone was mocking. He had always been at odds with the three emperors of the heavenly spirit realm. With his strength, he did not fear the three of them. Even if he fought one against three, he might not lose. In the heavenly spirit realm, Chengba's strength was second only to Huang Jifu. To be able to become the emperor of the imperial capital, he was not ordinary. He must have been delayed by something. The Lulon Emperor said unhurriedly, "The human army is about to arrive. What could be more important than this?" Huang Jifu's face was unhappy. He said in a low voice, "Even the emperors from the distant sea region have come. Yin Imperial City is so close. It's fine that Yun Chong was delayed, but why didn't the other experts from Yin Imperial City come?" The current Huang Jifu was different from the past. He was less calm and more violent. He had been possessed by the demon Kuei Tuesday. At a glance, all the experts of the heavenly spirit realm were present. The G realm experts only made up a small portion of them. It was only at this moment that one could see the strength of the heavenly spirit realm. There were as many Saint Realm experts as there were hairs on a cow. Saint Realm experts were everywhere. They were stronger than any of the sorcerer race and demon race. This batch of heavenly spirit realm experts' battle strength was simply explosive. Just as they were discussing, smoke could be faintly heard from afar. Chengba, the emperor of the underworld, the emperor of Lulon, and the others all revealed serious expressions. They looked into the distance, and a hint of battle intent flashed in their eyes. They had already sensed the arrival of the human army. They were severely injured and even dared to attack the heavenly spirit realm. The courage of the human race was not ordinary. They were ambitious. Therefore, after this meeting with the sorcerer Emperor Shijuin, the heavenly spirit realm decided to help the sorcerer race. They wanted to wipe out the lowly humans from the Doling world to prevent future troubles. They also felt the danger. Ji, Heavenly Spirit, the human army, led by Gu Sheng and Shun, was stunned when they saw the Heavenly Spirit Realm's army stationed at the periphery of the Sorcerer race's territory. They had thought that the guards would be from the Sorcerer race, but they had never expected to see Ji and Heavenly Spirit Realm experts. In an instant, Gu Sheng and Shun's expressions turned ugly. With their intelligence, if they could not figure out the reason for Ji and Heavenly Spirit Realm's appearance, they would not be worthy of being the Alliance's commander. Shit! Shun gritted his teeth. No wonder the Sorcerer race is so fearless. They have already formed an alliance with the Heavenly Spirit Realm. Cold sweat seeped out of Gu Sheng's forehead. He was very clear about the current situation. To the Alliance, this was not an ordinary difficulty. He was especially clear about the Heavenly Spirit Realm's strength. Individually, they were stronger than the Sorcerer race and the Demonic race. Now that they had formed an alliance with the Sorcerer race, how could the Human and Ancient race alliance win? Not good. Shun's expression changed. If Heavenly Spirit and Ji are guarding this place, then wouldn't the Sorcerer race's army? We can't care so much. Gu Sheng looked ahead with bright eyes and said in a deep voice, whether or not we can resolve this crisis is still unknown. How strong were Ji and the Heavenly Spirit Realm? Right now, it was already laid bare in front of them. Although the Human and Ancient race armies were strong, there was a clear difference in strength between the two sides. If they really fought, regardless of quantity or quality, the Human and Ancient race alliance would be completely defeated. It was difficult to advance or retreat. Gu Sheng and Shun looked at each other, but they could not make up their minds. However, they did not need to think of any ideas because at that moment, the sound of drums beating came from the location of Ji and the Heavenly Spirit Realm experts. Following the high morale of the Heavenly Spirit Realm experts, the Heavenly Spirit Realm, who was originally in a defensive position, actually changed from defense to offense. Boom! Boom! Clang! Shio! Bang! Dust flew everywhere, and the Heavenly Spirit Realm experts rushed over from all directions. Gu Sheng and Shun's expressions immediately became extremely ugly. They had fallen into a trap. What a good event where a pie falls from the sky. Cool phones are waiting for you. Follow me, click on the Chinese network's public account, add a friend on WeChat, add a public account, type Kdred, and participate immediately. Everyone has a prize. Follow Kdred's WeChat public account immediately. Chapter 1725. P.S. Read the exclusive story behind Starry Sky Fiery and listen to your suggestions for the novel. Pay attention to the Chinese website's official account, add a friend on WeChat, add an official account, type Kdred, and tell me secretly. They had underestimated the Sorcerer tribe. Obviously, this was a trap set by the Sorcerer tribe and Ji to force the humans and the Ancient race into desperation. They were extremely scheming. Get into formation. Behind them, Qian Lian Huang quickly got into formation and remained calm. Even though the situation was extremely bad, this was war. Anything could happen. Very quickly, the human experts formed small circular formations one after another. With the Ancient race experts as the core, they linked up with each other to form a line of defense. They were able to react quickly and accurately. Since they were in the Sorcerer tribe's territory, the humans and the Ancient race were naturally prepared for battle. Even Gu Sheng, Wan Macho, and the other experts were on high alert. Although the Heavenly Spirit Realm experts were terrifying, they would not retreat. Even if this was a fierce battle, and they might even sacrifice their lives, the arrow was already knocked on the bow. They had no choice but to release it. Fight with them. Gu Sheng shouted. Anger flashed across his handsome face. Although Gu Sheng was very smart, he lacked experience. As the new Ancient Emperor, he had been defeated repeatedly. This was a huge blow to his confidence. However, under his handsome appearance, there was a strong warrior's heart. He would not admit defeat easily because he was also a true warrior. The humans and the Ancient race were at an absolute disadvantage. However, Right at this moment, an exceptionally terrifying power suddenly descended. Boom! A huge fireball that was as bright as the sun suddenly appeared in the sky above the battlefield and fell without warning. It wasn't just Gu Sheng, Qian Lian Empress, Wan Macho, and the other experts. The experts of Heavenly Spirit sect, including Emperor Cheng Ba, Emperor of the Underworld, and Emperor Lulan, were all stunned. Needless to say, the Heavenly Spirit Realm expert who was charging at the front was instantly enveloped by the terrifying fireball. He looked at the sky in shock and opened his mouth wide. Bang! The sky fell and the earth cracked. The terrifying flames brought about a shocking explosion, and the shockwaves even affected the human and ancient race regions. Many experts suffered light injuries, and it was not hard to imagine what would happen at the center of the explosion. Gu Sheng, Shun, Qian Lian Huang, and the others were shocked. They did not expect this. However, in an instant, hope and excitement flashed in the eyes of the human and ancient race experts. They looked up into the sky and saw a familiar figure at the source of the fireball. Black martial attire, ordinary figure, but it was so exciting. Emperor Lin. It really is Emperor Lin. Great! Emperor Lin is here. Cheers and joyful cries resounded loudly. Even the eyes of the ancient race experts were filled with excitement and admiration, as well as a little envy. In the blink of an eye, the morale of the human and ancient race army surged. They erupted with astonishing battle prowess and unity, and their loud shouts pierced through the clouds. On the other hand, the Heavenly Spirit and Extreme were completely dumbfounded. Heavy casualties. The huge fireball landed right in the center of the Heavenly Spirit Army. With just one move, the Heavenly Spirit Army lost more than 1/10 of its battle prowess. There was no way to dodge. Lin Feng's attack was not only fast, but also came without a trace. It was as if it had appeared out of thin air. Bastard! Cheng Ba let out a furious roar. His sturdy body was like steel, and the horn on his forehead flashed with a cold light. As the emperor of the imperial capital, he had never been humiliated like this before. He immediately soared into the sky, and his shocking strength, which was comparable to the witch Emperor Jiang, completely erupted as he went straight for Lin Feng. The Emperor of the Dead and Emperor Lulan looked at each other and hesitated, but they did not follow. Kuei, too, who was occupying Huang Jifu's body, had a glint in his eyes, but he did not reveal his strength. Unless he had no choice, there was no need to reveal his strength. Wouldn't it be better to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight? In the hearts of the powerhouses of the Heavenly Spirit Army, although Lin Feng's appearance was unexpected, it did not shock them too much. Since they had joined forces with the witch tribe, they were prepared to fight Lin Feng. In their opinion, Cheng Ba's strength was just right to be used as a touchstone to see how strong Lin Feng was. But they were destined to be disappointed. No one knew what had happened. They only saw a bright light appear, and Cheng Ba's figure disappeared as if he had evaporated. In the blink of an eye, before even a scream could be heard, another bright light appeared, and Cheng Ba's mountain-like body crashed down like a meteorite. Bang! He landed heavily, creating a huge crater. Shock filled their eyes. There was a huge hole in Cheng Ba's chest. He cannot be more dead. Hiss! The powerhouses of the Heavenly Spirit Army sucked in a breath of cold air. No one knew what had happened. In such a short period of time, Cheng Ba, who was known as the second strongest powerhouse in the Heavenly Spirit Army, had died just like that. They did not even know how Cheng Ba had died. Looking at the terrifying bloody hole, it was as if they could see their impending fate. The powerhouses of the Heavenly Spirit Army felt a chill from the bottom of their hearts, and goosebumps appeared on their bodies. But there was no time for them to hesitate. In an instant, Lin Feng's attack came again. A fireball that was as red as the sun once again condensed in Lin Feng's hand. This time, the aura was far weaker than the last time, but the speed at which it gathered was shocking. The speed at which it exploded was even more terrifying. There was no time for the powerhouses of the Heavenly Spirit Army to react. Fireballs shot out like a string of cannons. Boom, boom, boom. Flames enveloped the army of the Heavenly Spirit Army. Lin Feng's attack was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper, mercilessly taking the lives of the Heavenly Spirit Army. His appearance was like the flag of the human and ancient race army, fluttering in the wind as it stood tall. As if there was an endless amount of energy, Lin Feng's flames fell from the sky like a meteor, heading straight for the Heavenly Spirit Army. Even the sky turned fiery red. Flames refined the starry sky. At this moment, Lin Feng was a god. With his own strength, he shook the Heavenly Spirit Army. This was the strength of the strongest powerhouse in the Douling world. Even if Lin Feng only had less than 10% of his strength left in the Douling world, he was truly invincible. Invincible. The human and ancient race army could only watch, but their blood boiled as they watched. Seeing Lin Feng slaughtering the Heavenly Spirit Army, they were not only proud, but also extremely happy. They saw the Heavenly Spirit Army rushing toward Lin Feng, but other than the brilliant flash of light and the fall of the Heavenly Spirit Army one after another, they could not see anything else. If they got close, they would die. If they did not get close, they would die even faster. He was a heaven-defying existence. The current Lin Feng could easily destroy the Heavenly Spirit Army alone. The situation was completely out of control. If the Heavenly Spirit Army and Extreme Spirit Army could not overcome Lin Feng, then they were destined to fail. The Emperor of the Underworld looked at Lin Feng with a complicated gaze. This was because he and Lin Feng could be considered to have some friendship. After all, Lin Feng had the title of Cloud Master with him. However, for the sake of the race, there was no need to talk about this. It was normal for them to oppose each other. Wanting Lin Feng to show him mercy? Absolutely impossible. As for the Emperor of Lulan, he had new and old grudges against Lin Feng, but he was not stupid. He could see how terrifying Lin Feng's strength was. Even Cheng Ba, who was several times stronger than him, was easily killed by Lin Feng. Was he going to attack Lin Feng? That was courting death. Everyone's eyes were focused on the strongest person in the Heavenly Spirit Army, the Emperor of Extremity, Huang Jifu. To be precise, it was Kuei Tuesday. However, when he saw the terrifying Lin Feng, Kuei Tu's eyes were filled with fear. How could he dare to resist? He could not help but curse Lam Tok Ti in his heart. However, at this time, Lam Tok Ti still had not appeared. And at this moment, stop! Lin Feng, stop immediately! A cold voice appeared out of thin air. It was a figure hidden in a black cloak who instantly appeared. In a human voice, he directly called out Lin Feng's name. His appearance not only caused Kuei Tu to raise his hand to stop the Extreme Spirit Army and Heavenly Spirit Army's experts from continuing to attack, but also caused Lin Feng to stop. Whoosh! Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Great energy? Looking at the figure in the cloak, Lin Feng secretly moved. Although he could not see the identity of the mysterious person in the cloak, he could clearly sense his aura. It was not the aura of death, but the gray energy. Because the gray energy controlled the living, and the aura of death controlled the dead. The two seemed to be the same, but the difference was not small. Who are you? Why are you being so sneaky? Lin Feng shouted. In fact, he already had a vague feeling in his heart that the appearance of the mysterious cloaked man seemed to be related to the Sky Martial Continent's inscription formation. Jia Jia. His laughter was mournful and unpleasant to the ears, like that of a living dead. The mysterious cloaked man didn't seem to want to reveal the truth. With a strange voice, he said, "Who I am is not important. What's important is, if you want the hunting nation to be safe and sound, if you want your family to be safe and sound, then I advise you not to resist and obediently allow yourself to be captured." It really was him. Lin Feng was certain. He had long guessed that the purpose of the 3 inscription formations in the kingdom of Meru was to threaten him. It was just that he had thought that the person who set it up was an expert from the Witch Clan, but he did not expect that it would be an expert from the Heavenly Spirit Army. However, this was not important. What was important was, who was he? Swish! Lin Feng pretended to be pale and said in a low voice, "What are you talking about?" Ha! Ha ha ha! The mysterious cloaked man laughed wantonly. His laughter was filled with complacency and malice. He said coldly, "There are times when you don't know. Holy King, I don't mind telling you at the bottom of the Sky Martial Continent, at the center of the Sky City, and at the entrance of the 10,000 Bones Mountain, I installed the 10,000 Spiders Blood Python Formation. You haven't heard of it, right? Don't worry. To put it simply, as long as I want to, I can make your family, and even the kingdom of Meru, turn into ashes." Swish! In an instant, the human and ancient race experts' faces turned pale. Despicable, bastard, despicable person. How dare you use such a despicable move? Don't believe him. Emperor Lin, he must be lying to you. He is too shameless. There was a wave of angry curses. However, the mysterious cloaked man turned a blind eye to it, and with his hand behind his back, he laughed strangely from time to time. Jia Jia. Lie. Of course not. Not to mention that Lin Feng already knew about the existence of the 10,000 Spiders Blood Python Formation. Just the fact that the mysterious cloaked man was able to tell his identity, the existence of the kingdom of Meru, and even the name of the 10,000 Bones Mountain, showed that the mysterious cloaked man had already understood the kingdom of Meru, and even his weaknesses. He was the venomous snake that had been hiding in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to devour him. Very good. Finally, I've found you. What a good event for a pie falling from the sky. I'm waiting for you to get a cool phone. Click on the Chinese website's official account, add a friend on WeChat, add a public account, type Kdred, and participate immediately. There will be a prize for everyone. Follow Kdred's official account on WeChat. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.